Und ich habe schon gelernt, ich meine 12 ganze Schiere, meine ich, auf der Indien, stimmt? Wieder gegen mir Number 12, I think. Ja.
Mit das alles.
Ich habe Numbers. Yes, number 13. So what draten is gematria Eichland.
It's a lucky number.
Achles, meint dat man schon 3 gedusch, man ik neues en ich balance gerät, so I'll let you speak.
Alright. You're supposed to tell us before that. You only have, the way you're speaking.
I'll help you.
You didn't even listen. He spoke about Shirim, now he wants you to speak.
Instead of Shirim is berig 3 geduschen, right? Wat me gaan doen.
Hij moet de guest van wat maken. Dan neem ik erbij.
I'll be the moderator.
Maar zo lang is het niet vreemd is dan.
Ja, ik meine das. Ich will trying to help. Ich habe gedacht ein bisschen diese Structure. Was ich meine ist, ich will was ich meine, aber gerne ein bisschen mehr. Ich meine 2 Sachen. Können wir noch halt dumm, was gerade gar nicht. Ich habe verschiedene teacher groups, das Menschen so Tipps zu teachen. Eine von der Sachen, was ich gesagt habe, ist wie sie zu machen, der Ölm so
Enthusiastic.
Not enthusiastic, no, they actually mishtativ. The dream, a gewisse dream, was gewisse teachers haben, das sind also Socrates. Socrates Spiel ist gewähnt, also ist so gut nicht. Ich frage noch, kannst du diese Sorgen nicht Terz, ja? Ich will auch dieses auf der Lines verstehen, ich will nicht die Sorgen nach Schiels machen, Masken sein, nicht Masken sein. Ich will auch dieses Beizem, der Trick, von der ich habe recht, nee, dass ich habe Zielgerät als Schiel, aber ich halte, dass du geht der Reichung, ja? Du geht die Kasche, es geht der Reis, was kommen uns zu mir. Sonst hätte ich auch so die ganze Sache, dass du umkommen. Dann muss ich fragen nach der Kasche, der richtige Weg, also die erste Sorgen der Terz, weil der Terz kommt raus von der Kasche, ja? Ich dich anreden, ich habe dich anreden, dass die bis gut im Machabe von der Schier ist. Also ist du Mahalle, das ist so der Socratic Method, Menschen treffen als geht der Weg von Teaching, also. Wir sehen einer schreibt, das ist sehr schwer, das Team, weil normalerweise ein Mensch, wenn sagt, der Schier, hat doch schon der Schier, will doch schon verkaufen der Schier. Es ist sehr schwer, was zu machen, also weiß nicht, ja. Sagt mit diese ganze Sache, wenn ich weiß, also ich weiß nicht, also der macht ich weiß nicht, die so, ne? Ich kann dir helfen so, ja, ich will dich bringen nach Kasche, ausspritzen, was hast du gesagt, das macht Sinn. Davon kommt ja mal, was macht Sinn. Aber ich weiß nicht, und ab hier auf, der Teacher weiß ja. So, das ist steht, wir nehmen auf, ab hier auf genug nicht das Spiel. Die haben gesagt, als der Terror ist Bullshit, so kann ich wissen. Was darf man machen als Spiel? Exactly. Exactly, das ist der Trick. Agama.
Die alle Wege schon
Aber das ist Signal in der Kasche.
Wir gehen noch auf die Karte, wo der Rest der Heilteil von der MS noch in der Dover, und das ist was Eiber, so ist es. Ich gesagt, der Pusik, heute gewähnt, Deutsch gewähnt, das ist eine Drusche, wo der Rest der Heilteil, das ist da gerechtig, das ist der Eiber. Das ist so eine Schmai, was hat die schöne Beruf gesagt. Also ich denke, ja, das stimmt. Das ist teuer.
Gerne, aber auch, dass der erste Maschine ist.
You're mixing up 2 things.
Das ist gemeint, ja, und wenn jetzt in teuer ist, eins ist noch an.
Also erst mach schon, Miscoloration, ist gut. Wieso weiß der Rebbe, wie sie es sagen können? Sicher,
Ja, aber das ist nicht damit mitzusagen. Also der erste Maschine genommen das 3.
Ich habe schon am Maß von Miscoloration. Eine ist reingegangen in der Rebbe. Ich habe gesagt, dass die Parentschus, was man steht auf dem, an Schal auf den vollen Scham, das ist ein Beine, aber jeden Scham ist gleich mit zusammen, zwischen der Dauer und dem Tisch. Kitsed, can you with that? That's nice. It's not a problem because it slides in easily. Yeah? Easy? Kitsed got that all. But that was not have. And there was direct kacha and we look at the guy that slides in easily. Look them. It's not 100% true. In the cook 9 branches it slides in easily. Look, man steht da Pucho durch und der größte Bock ist. It's ausgebeugen. Sie geht daran bekäusig. Gar an zum Reben. Suchen, was gemacht dazu ist. Nein, Miscoloration gewesen. Das ist mir weg.
Weil es gerade Information.
Das macht keinen Sinn.
Exactly. Los. Ich mache dazu nicht. Ich mache dazu von dem.
Exactly, aber so, nein, mehr ernst. Die sind nicht das die drei Idee, als mir jetzt von... Ich werde nicht von aller Woche jetzt. Aber was ich so... Also weiß Tacken nicht, so nicht zu greifen, weiß nicht, aber at some level, es ist schade, das Anziege greifen.
So basically, the mehr trachten, mehr Schatten. Dann hat der erste Schnitt, der dir im Kopf, boom.
No,
Das ist nicht Freudig.
It's the
No, that's a different topic. That's a different topic.
Das ist nicht so viel Distraction, so geredet wegen des.
Yeah.
So geredet wegen, also am Himmel war es eine
But
neue.
I have a different idea. That you shouldn't have agenda that what you're thinking is right. You should think, you know what, maybe yours is right.
Der ist wirklich noch
Oh,
einmal.
ich kann mich strachen, so ich kann sagen, ich kann
Ich sag dir das
Never.
That's what I'm trying to convince him now. They should think.
Ich sag dir was ich gesagt.
We're getting worse by the minute.
So du hast
Im Rock, einmal in der Morde sagt, was sagt er, cool Rock. Gut. Einmal ist Morde.
Lemurs.
Folks was is einmal von dem Baby.
Yeah,
And he did not know what he was talking about.
Lemurs. That's what I'm
Das
saying.
ist noch mal eine Sache, ja. Ja, cool. Finish with, refuse to even budge, to even think about it.
You're on the old sorry stuff.
You were made of him.
No.
Yitzchak is sehr confident in seinem Trachten. Sehr confident.
aber das auch nicht geredet jetzt. Das ist nicht wirklich.
It is. It's part of the thing.
So let's try to. But we can I feel the
You want,
Socrates.
you will do those smaken a soup and then I can.
I feel the Socrates. Das ist noch ein Schaf. Ich will aber nicht so sein organisiert, aber es ist nicht organisiert, auf dem kann man das gar nicht in Waren schmissen oder in so Sache, whatever the Irish equivalent of it is.
Ich hatte das aber hier mal sehr offen an Schienen sind gewesen, also die ist gesagt, 50% mit Zeit und nicht reingehakt.
No,
Wie wir schaffen.
but I didn't listen, so there is a there. So maybe I
I
should
said, now you're gonna start listening. I hear, this is the difference.
Na, ich sag mal einmal, was ist echt mehr useful, ja, so ganz, was mehr, kann sein mehr useful. In so let's try to give it more structure. Ja, viele Socrates hat nicht, es tut sich manchmal so, dass Socrates alle sind fake, right? Das ist so, sie sagt, Socrates alle gar nicht, Socrates sagt da drüben, es ist da like, weißt du, jeder kommt nicht sagt, ja, warte, was das angehen, sagst du, was es geht. Das ist kein Dialog. Das ist ein Mann, aber sie haben das typisch, oder das gewöhnlich. Aber viele hat nicht kein anderes Ding überblickt, das ist
Was ist mal mit Socrates aus dem Halb von einem?
The guy that did it is
in jetzt von einer Kind, sie hat jetzt schon Spirits Ding. Sie hat von einer Kind, also dann sagt es gewöhnt, also sagt, dass ich verkauft nicht kein Shit ist. Ich muss kein Bau Shit ist, verkauft Shit ist. Das ist ein very important point, ich meide zu dem. Sein Sache Pro. Verkauft nicht kein Bau Shit, ich verkauft nicht kein Shit, ich verkauft. Aber das ist allein sprechen. Das sagt dir, ich bin a midwife, ja, mir ladies. Das ist einmal die Gräbe laut Socrates und laut Yitzchak. Ich bringe dich nicht an Kinder, ja. Ich mache die auf Kinder. Will it you give us the
believe that you have an innate knowledge. That's part of it also.
Yeah, of course. But it has to do, wie sich das bringen kann. Vielleicht durch die Kasches, rauskommen, oder sehr bist du wrong, weil ich nicht madrig. Was doch. Also das stimmt nicht, du hast hier, und das ist du müssen allein verstehen, dass du eine bessere oder ein Ende verstehen, du weißt nicht, whatever the end result is, oder dann, ich wusste es nicht, ist nicht ich bin eine Möche für Shit, ist nicht ich bin eine Salesperson, von einer gewissen Philosophie, von einer gewissen Teure. Ich bin eine Helfer, ich weiß ihm helfe dich, ich like sich hinter der Talmud, in a certain sense, right? Die ist sagen, ich weiß nicht, die ist sagen. Aber das Problem ist, dass du weißt, der Rebbe ja, so ist ein Problem. Aber das sagt, die Masse, können wir du sagen, dass er belaufen, weiß, dass ich mehr in der Markt, nicht nach Spielen, und so, das ist das Record. Weißt du, ob es Mama nicht stimmt, das ist gemeint, aber mehr von, weinige von dem, at minimum darf man kennen helfen, der Mensch darf dich ja etwas dafür dich tun, ja, auf jenem Bauchteures, hat dich jene gewiss Pass, wie man sagt, dieser Kanada, das erlehnt ihm ja etwas aus, in einer gewissen Sinn, right? At least, der vierte MC, right? So wie der vierte MC, wieso macht man der jetzt hier für at least step one is to like a subject of addition is definement. I think that's the first step in this game. You know, I'm not spielen Schach, kann ich dann verstecken. At least kann man man durch the das ist the König, this is the rules of the game. At least something like that has to happen. But not having a defined thing that you're selling. The teacher is selling is mistam so they so lot the bluffers, is this noch a sales tactic, verstehst du? Ich kann von der, ich kann das nicht noch, verstehst du? So nicht. Bloß ich mach sicher, also so stimmt, wenn sie richtige Maskune, ja, ich kann von der Maskune. I have ways to trick you into coming to where I wanted you to get to. Und das ist also so klein, also stutz sich mitschen, wie sie machen, der Bluff, kann man es dem BMS, kann man doch BMS nicht wissen. Sometimes it's nicht.
I don't think it's Yovis Nishvis. I think it's a certain anivis or shiftless that, as much as I know, I'm never 100% sure. I know you don't like to hear a sentence. I'm never 100% sure, even as much as I think that I know. Maybe I'm not 100% correct. 90% is Nasach.
But the concept
There always could be. There's always.
Yeah, but
You're good. There's always could be that I'm not right, and let me hear what the other person has to say. That's if you're willing to do that, then why not? You just have to say, I'm never 100%. Nobody can be 100%. You just do as a
but that's not how it usually goes. Usually it goes like Fox News. We report and you decide. I'm not particular what you decide. You say you decide. And nicht weil hat gesagt.
This is news. This is news. Gerade wegen Diets, wegen news.
Sag mal da, aber spielen sie auch okay.
I think part of that neediness of a person is that he knows, as much as he knows, it's 90% is Nasach. Small people know that they don't know everything.
I think that there's more than a nevis. I think that there's being teachable. It's not really about a nevis, and also not about doubt. That's what the early is into, if there's doubt or not. It's not about skepticism. It's more about, for them to look, weil man weiß, technisch ist das Beste. Be'emes, my mushal that I'm going to give you is too charged. Let me try to find this mushal that nobody cares about. Nah. I have experience. Okay, that's nice. Okay. Also a silly mushal, ja. Die Muschel der Bank von Japan gemacht hat, eine gewisse Achlut, das ergeben mehr Geld, weniger Geld, mehr größere Interest Rate, weniger Interest Rate. Ich hoffe, es kann nicht verstehen, nicht ziehen in dem, so eine sehr große Schritte. Ich halte es so, Muschel, die kommst zu mir, ich halte mich kein größer Ökonomist. Ich halte mich kein Tipp, ich kann mich, ich weiß nicht, ich weiß, wie Japan ist. Ich weiß nicht, welches Sort Geld zu haben. Yen heißt das?
Ja.
Schade.
Okay.
Du mach Leukes Economist, das ist Team schlecht, das Team geht größer mach Leukes, mit sich das gewöhnlich der Gast ran Zimmer von Economist, das ist eine von das also wird zu sagen an so allein. Wir kennen nicht kann nicht Maske sein, andere Werte, was steht mich in der kann nicht Maske sein, nicht kimst die so feier der Preploini. Aber ist das so sicher, da ohne recht das bist du nicht gegangen. Der Preploini shiny. But that's not what's interesting to me. I'm not looking for any one of them to think that they're wrong. Ich als neutral, ich als Mensch, ich als Yitzchak, ich kann nicht Hashem, ich wohne nicht in Japan, es macht nicht keine Chile, ich sage Chile, mit kaufen seine Bahn, so whatever. Ich kann nicht persönliche, personal, ich würde nicht kein Team tun. Aber was? Lass mich sagen, ich kann mir etwas anderes, das ist echt, ich will das nicht umgehen, weißt du, ich sage das. Ich will aber verstehen, ja, es kann sagen, dass ich heilig von der Welt. Lass mich sagen, ich bin interessiert, nicht sehr interessiert, weil ich mehr interessiert, ich habe schon gewusst, aber ich kann verstehen. Die kennst du, weißt du, die ist dort gelernt, die kennst das Maß besagen. Sag ich mal, versuch mich aschieren. Warum der Japaner Bank zu zieh wenig für sein Geld, zieh viel für sein Geld, geben er auch zieh billig. Sag ich mal, bist du in deflation. Was ist inflation? Explain it to me. I'll get something out of it. Now, you have one opinion, die bist auf einen Satz von der Debate. Sag ich mal, mit Antworten, mach gar nicht der zweite, und fragen. Sag ich mal, wenn ich als dritter Mensch, ich kann sich lernen, der Zad Aleph kickt mehr auf ein gewisser Point, Zad Beis kickt mehr auf andere gewisse Point, ja. Und weiter sind Geloken von der Metzies. Was ist der Maskuna der Maße? Ich sehe, ich will nicht jetzt kommen, kann Maskuna der Maße. Ich sehe, zu verstehen das, ich will verstehen, ich will können schmissen wie ein intelligenter Mensch, wir können intelligent schmissen wegen der Bank von Japan macht Leute, ja? Jetzt, sag mal, was will ich noch nicht geschehen? Was will ich noch nicht geschehen? Und von dem suche ich nicht kann Sachen, was ich weiß, jeder du hat Opinions wegen. Was ich will nicht geschehen ist, also ich will nicht hören noch ein Fight. Ich kann nicht kein Schimmen drehen, ich kehre nicht, okay? Das ist ein Maschine, ja, Bank von Japan, ganz Japan geht sterben wegen der... Okay, ja, geht nicht kommen. Ja, komm. Hier geht das Japan noch sterben. Seid, aber not my problem now. Ich sehe nicht, dass kein Team soll gewinnen durch sein Game. Ich sehe eine andere Sache, eine dritte Sache, in a certain sense, von beide von diesen Menschen sehen. Sei beide sich zu sein gerecht. Ich sehe nicht zu sein gerecht, ich sehe zu lernen, ich sehe zu verstehen. Du hast größer Glück, für sich zu sein gerecht, und sich zu lernen. Wie bald ich bin
aber ich bin nicht zu sein gerecht. Aber du siehst nicht der
ich kenne nicht, ich kann nicht mit Japan gehen, ich denke noch die Dinge. Ich
not
kann nicht mit Japan gehen.
Der Muschel, aber der Muschel,
Bis war der Muschel, verstehen die Sache.
Ich stand mal raus der Muschel.
Ich will raus der Nimmschel von der Muschel, ja, was ist die Idee, was ich try to define, ob ich define es so geht. Ich will nicht, will, also ich so, mein Point ist zu sagen, zu verstehen. Ich will nicht sagen gerecht, ich weiß nicht, ich kann nicht geschehen finden, ich kann nicht geschehen sein, und die mach Leukes von den Hilches Bank von Japan. And therefore, lass mal aber sagen, was ich will, wegen dem, wenn ich komme rein nach Zimmer, was ich sehe, die zwei Menschen schlugen sich, einer für der Zweite. Die bist gerade dreite wegen dir, wir starben mit Babys in Nursing Home, wegen, nicht in Japan, ja, weil es ist alt, es kostet die Oil, die Population ist alt, und du kannst Social Security, whatever, I don't know. Ja, und die Zweite schreit, die bist dreite wegen, whatever. Ich kehre nicht, ich kicke auf dem, okay, der schmiss gar nicht schon gut nicht rauskommen. Zwei Menschen sind schlugen, können sagen, der sagen, vielleicht tun wir bessere Reihe, ich kehre nicht. Ich verstehe dich nicht, ich will dich verstehen. Ich habe at least mit Tor ist ein Mensch, was ich kann. Der MS, wie bald ich habe kaum nicht gelernt. Ich habe gelernt, ich habe ja gar keine Opinion, ja. Aber da kommt dem, was ich Tag nicht gelernt, ich weiß Tag nicht. Ich bin ignorant, ich bin am Moritz. In Juni Bank in Japan bin ich am Moritz. Ich kann nicht gelernt, ich kann kaum Ivre von der Neueste. So therefore I am teachable. Ich kann sagen, ich glaube nach Schmiss mit einer, it doesn't even matter which side of the debate is on.
What are you trying to say? That somebody that knows too much is not teachable anymore?
Not about knowing too much, they don't know es. Aber ich bin teachable, ich kann dann immer nach Schmiss mit einer rauskommen kriegen. Ich kann verstehen, die Reality besser. Ich kann wissen, mehr, ich kann look für Reality, ich kann nicht wissen, verstehen, wie das Arbeit, was sind die Gesetzen, was sind die...
You don't have to be Amuritz.
Masch Einkein. Of course, ich dachte, okay, bleib ich mal Amuritz Mamisch.
No, not Amuritz Mamisch. Ich meine, kennst du eine Kliege Menschen verstehen Interest in everything also? Go in the room and listen to these two people. What's the big deal? Du bist auch, du hast doch eine Dai. Du verstehst doch den Neuse, bist du schlecht? What's wrong? Du verstehst doch den Neuse. Only in the economy, yeah?
Right, it's not wrong. It's not wrong. It's a question. I don't think it's a question. I think it's a question of attitude. I think it's
Maar ze eigenlijk ook die wil zijn Engels zijn gerecht.
It's a question, I think, right? But ich bin gerecht, I'm not looking to one. It's most of the time, this is the trachter, it's nicht möglich, was verkehrt. Was ich will umkommen, also viele werden aus die anderen Opinions, was ich sagen, offen, du willst nicht umkommen. Und nicht nur die gezäunische Muschel, auf den Teufel sind an deine Kinder, was uns will, ich will um, right? Ich suche nicht, so sagen, uncaring about things, right? Ich suche nicht, so nicht kehren. Efter mal viele kehren in der Bank von Japan. Ich weiß nicht, ich verstehe nicht, wegen dem Genick, sie suchen sich so kehren. Aber sie kennen noch was abkehren, right? Ich bin offen, als einer soll sich nahe sein,
wo ist der Point? Die kehrst nicht?
Nein, ich nicht, die nicht kehren, die digmen, wie ich kehren nicht. Und andere Leute, was ich weiß, tacken nicht. Ich bin mooi, dass ich weiß nicht. Und gerade zu sagen, du gerade Mensch, was by the way.
So you're mixing two things. I think it's something I think. That's the question.
Lass mich zurück. Ich will wissen, dass du als eine Art Möglichkeit, wie ich kann, I want to get to this word that I am teachable. So möglich, als du gar nicht spielst, rauskommen Klieger. That's the definition to me. Rauskommen, besser verstehen. Anything. Besser verstehen, part von der reality. Ich nicht Digma wie eine Sache, was ich weiß nicht, und das sind zwei Sachen. Also ich so, okay, zwei andere Sachen. Ich weiß nicht. And therefore, ich kann mir schnell müde sein, als ich weiß nicht. Darf sagen, du, weil das ist eine Sache. Viele der Sachen, was ich weiß nicht. Es ist sehr schwer für eine Sache Menschen, eine Sache, even smart people actually, without any Digmas, but then kein Tracht für Digmas, so verschiedene gutkliege Menschen, wie du weißt, was eine Kliege, und man gewisse Trim, was am Gedehren, so sie geht, und packkliege Menschen. But, because of that, they believe that they already know everything. Oh, ich habe sehr viel Schule zu haben. I'm going to try not to.
Yeah, he's holding himself back.
Nein,
try not to.
Meine
ich meine, ich kann nicht.
Das geht das auch mit Schule, oder?
Du hast auch mit Schule. Du Menschen, was er sagt, am Wochen mit sagen, und es da, und andere sagen, whatever it is. Und der Covid dem, hat da wegen der Bank von Japan. Dachte nicht mehr wie 2 Minuten, einer ist im Zoom, der 2 Stunden, man hat schon da. Weiß schon, picklich, wie sie die Welt sagt.
מחויזה סייני.
But it's not only, you see, in Canada, it was in Canada, this guy not with us, the same as it. I don't think that
because we don't have education the right way.
I don't believe so much in this.
No, verkehrt, das ist doch so.
Ich glaube nicht, dass auch viel in Charadishkeit, also nur von uns eigenen Chesroin ist. Ich glaube, Chesroin ist in so...
We have bigger Chesroin as well, whatever.
Kann sein, also das ist okay, so, ich will nicht reden wollen. Let's try to keep it theoretical and boring.
We're a little unique, because I boxed in.
Exactly.
But
Because we're not open enough, we don't realize that this certain subject is so huge.
was up to Satin?
لموشل لما ندمج دخل سرنام.
Ja, aber nicht lassen.
Jeder eine letzte wer bist du? Wer bist du?
Ich weiß
Kannst du gehen nach
Sag ich muss, ich weiß besser, ich weiß auch nicht, ich muss das ich mag nach das. Kennst du dafür, was kennst du dafür den Teure? Ja, ich kennst du also mir neues mit Teure, was heißt Kabule, which maybe the whole thing is not such this with weiß, but du meinst du wirst zu lernen, right? At least is ja so, ihr muss ja nicht wissen, at least volgens day. Also normal. Es kann ganz verschiedene haben da kommen, mit der haben kommen, nicht Menschen sind dumm. Die Menschen können sagen, ich schmeckt. Ich bin ganz sicher, dass können so da ist, also können let's not get together so of course. Let's not get together so da. See this that's why whenever we get
Guess the machine time.
Guess what? Du meinst danke?
I didn't see that.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I'm a gedacht, but getting flats, I didn't see that.
Okay, maybe I should have helped nach mich das weiß nicht, maybe could stuck hard.
But even in different sigis, right? Begin die kennst Chosh Mishpit, Kazan is nicht gleich durch Shabbos. You don't know.
Exactly.
You can't do Shabbos.
You can't du ganz geht Tools zu nehmen und Shabbos. Kann ich sagen,
you can't just pass enough.
Zu nehmen jetzt rein, aber du darfst lernen. Sie kennen seine Motive, die Gast jetzt weiter, hat jenes gelernt. Du sagst dem, ihr Lamdani Rabani, lernen mich aus. Bro, sag Menschen haben das nicht. Let's forget about the Gmus, because I feel like the Gmus hurt more than they help.
So da ich wollte gewähnen als die Weise an die Kenntnis.
Das ist nicht mein Point. Mein Point ist, als du bist bar hoche, also du bist teachable. Du bist bar hoche und ich sollst lernen etwas. This is the attitude more than it's about do you know or do you not know. That's what's important. It's nicht so Mitte, maybe it's a Zeichen, was eben so. It's a Mitte.
Wie viel du bist teachable?
Ich habe gedacht wegen mir.
Frey, also
das
die halt an teachable?
That's what he's trying to do right now. He's giving this whole speech. He wants to be teachable.
No, he says, ich gehe even für die Bankrepan, ich gehe aus. Ich frage ich dir, ob die bist teachable.
Can I that first line? Honestly, no.
Yes or no?
It's not fair.
Why not?
Not really.
You're the one that's going to be doing it. What do you
Like
mean?
your family, we want
No, but you're the one that's going to be doing it. So you have to talk about yourself. You want to do that. You're going to let Yoeli, for example, or me, anybody say something.
So
You're going to be
you feel you're teachable?
So he's asking you
Yes
if
or
you're
no?
teachable.
You say no, it's fine.
You said you want to be in that position. So he's asking you a very serious question.
The guy's jumping anyways. I can't help
The killing the whole.
Ja, das ist aber gesiegt, was ich gedacht habe, sie war
it. Gar nicht answering the question anyways. It's not even fair to say you decide that, not me. What kind of point would there be for me to convince you something about me? It's up to you to decide that.
I would believe you.
It's up to you to decide.
I don't know, I'm asking you.
But he's asking the question, do you want to be teachable?
I'm interested in this understanding this. So, verstehen in der Kette. Wie sind wir umgehen mit einer Kette?
What do you mean? That's what you want to do. Du willst machen, also open up a topic and it should be open discussion.
You can't just get open on all topics.
Charlatans. Whatever, you're going to open a discussion. You're going to make an open discussion.
Yeah, so let's I will answer the question. Ja, ich will schon wegen der, lass mal denken, wie versteht es. So, du eine Sache, was heißt. Also ich bin Maskim, also ich weiß schon, wenn ich da viele Nossen, was Menschen weißen, Tacken nicht, sag Menschen fehlen die Sache. And I think that it's a middle more than anything else. And it's about, du hast auch Chalukum, man darf verangern, man darf Tacken sagen, wie das arbeitet, wie das arbeitet nicht. It's very important. And we also have to try to figure out how it's going to work in a place where you do know things, right? And the bank in a certain sense easy, at least if you're not totally crazy, right? It's somewhat easy. Well, ich kann verstehen, dass du Menschen, es ist wichtig zu reden, es ist dass du was zu reden, wie bald dass du Menschen, was auf dem sei schwer zu haben, man kann sich etwas ausdenken. Just don't let themselves be taught.
And what would you say wegen dem, als du mal sagst, ein Mensch will bestimmt ein Blockage, will nicht bestimmt ein Öffnen sein, anders wie halt. Lass ein Mäuer.
I think it's, I feel I'm not going to try something. Ich meine, Tag als ich gerade lassen reden.
Exactly. And I think so.
Yeah, you have to run the cameras in.
I did not think so.
I don't think we let you anyway.
Personal. So maybe that's really the point that I want to get to. Try.
You make reverse psychology now.
Try a very simple point. Let's try something very simple.
People want 4 weeks or Shabbos
Bro. I want to do it still. But if we'll try that, it's very simple. And I'm looking for a nice way to say this.
Don't say it nice, say it all the way.
No, we're good.
Learn from Yoli.
We can handle it.
Learn from Yoli sometimes.
Alles darf
Kennst
man
du auch sagen, also, Bruchel.
Alles darf man lernen für jeder eine.
No, I said sometimes.
Maar te leren, dat gibt es eigenlijk.
Hey, es vermeckt sich lernen, mit Kommandant ist Kalti. Moiwe,
Yeah.
like mining.
Yeah. The good things.
Even the bad things, das ist doch Moiwe.
Ja,
Man nimmt etwas heraus.
Don't worry, Schlechtkeit habe ich nicht. I'm not looking for ways to look for more Schlechtigkeit. I'm pretty good at that, I think. Maybe not. Yeah, let's think how we could use other people. Maybe that's an egoistic way of saying it. Ich meine, als wir kann lernen von der Zweiten, es ist nicht nur wegen eine Sache, was ich weiß nicht, right? Eine Sache, was ich weiß, ja. Right? Oder eine Sache, was... I want to take out, let's do this, vielleicht eine richtige Schale, and maybe others also. What if I have a very strong... Ich habe ja, was ist schlecht, ich habe ja, ich habe Schätte wegen, was der Bank von Japan sagt, right? Was ist Demos? Kann ich Demos etwas lernen? That's the challenge, right? Aber wenn ich weiß gut nicht, ich nicht nur die wissen gut nicht, to show us what kind of stance, what kind of attitude I have when I actually manage to learn something. Also geschieht, ich kann sehen bei mir, ich kann sehen bei anderen Menschen. Du als in conversation, dass ich habe mit einem Menschen, ich so, yes, I have it. I do it rarely because there's not that many people that's worth to learn from.
There you go.
Okay, and that's number one. And that's true. But weißt du, man darf nicht alles
Landback.
Nein, it's just not always worth the effort. Jeder eine kann etwas lernen, aber bis mit umkommen, die Sachen zu lernen, darf nicht jeder selbst stützen. Ich weiß jetzt, darf ich treffen, einer hat mehr Percentage von wertvolle Sachen, von nicht wertvolle Sachen. Ja. But secondly, because there's a certain talent to that. Right? Socrates looked at a midwife. That means he's claiming something for himself, right? He's not saying that I'm nothing, right? He's saying that he's the best teacher in history, right? That's the title we're giving him today, right? And why does he think that he's the best teacher in history, right? There's this in the trial where he's asked this. He says, you know what? I should be given a position and I'm doing something good for you, right? Because I'm teaching you. Why does he think he's such a good teacher, although he's not teaching anything according to him, right? But they help, as he had day kishren, as kann dich machen etwas lernen, kann dich machen, nicht nur ihm sagen, was die helped, right? He really thinks that through that he could make you know things better than you knew them before also, right? But in any case, he thinks that he has a kishren, and he thinks that he has a talent to learn things from people. Let's even say it like this. And I think that that's a talent that even fewer people than have the talent to learn, to be teachable, have. What I mean by that? Firstly, you just have to ask, right? Not afraid. Most people, when they talk with anyone else, are for the most part interested in talking. I feel information, right? I feel information. Ich kann, lass mal so eine Ding was. Nein, Dinge, things. Lass mal so ich bin sehr sicher wegen etwas gewisse Chassidus ist totally not. Und wir alle ansparen und legen die Kinder in Foster Homes. Und dann habe ich so normal Mensch. Jetzt treffe ich von der Kat. So there's kind of two things I can do. I can have a conversation where I might learn something, and I can have a conversation where I will pretend to convince him, and 99% of the chances that I won't. But because I feel good, I'm going to There's two options was ich can do, right? Most people, at least people like me, I'm usually if ich bin get them oder ich just ignore them, right? Let's ignore the noise. Machst du, wie viel Kinder hast du, wie viel Geld machst du, whatever, random stuff. Ob ich mich an der Mut von anangehende Sache, for the most part I'll have an argument with him, right? And from this argument, nicht ich and nicht anything lernen, most likely. Not only because we're akshunim, you see? That's not what I'm not even worried about that. This is that action I got nicht tauschen in their mind, you know something? Ich bin masken mit seiner akshunim, nicht tauschen in their mind. I'm not talking about changing your mind. You should never change your mind. You should always keep to your mind. Let's assume. Nicht gedacht, schade auf nächste Stunde. Nach vorne Minute Pschieten, the Rebbe is gesucht so von seinem Kat. Not even about that. But talking about something a lot simpler. Did he learn anything, or did I learn anything from our conversation? Is that all we can do? Is that all we can from the conversation? Any information was nicht gewesen in developed oder zwischen ihm oder mich und bei ihm ein Vater. Aber es nur noch ein Fight, noch ein Match.
What's the goal then?
It depends, but I have it was married, thing that.
I think it's usually.
Sie sagen, Quatsch gesagt, was important zum noch Information. Die weiß alles wegen der Caps, wir können wissen, and there's nothing you can bezeigen, nein, kann gut wissen davon.
I'm not talking about those types of things.
It's the Muschel. It's a more complicated Sache, wie
I think that there's almost always information to be gotten, and we almost always neglect to look for it.
Okay, but let's agree. Willst du helfen mir, Mensch, what do you want? What's the goal?
I feel like ich will ihm helfen, das sicher als Stam, du willst reden, praktisch kann ich kein Goal. Ich rede jetzt von der Goal von Lernen. Jetzt rede ich...
Play it back one day.
Was? Jetzt rede ich die Goal von Verstanden. Lass doch auf von Mattel sein, der Fusch ist rot von der Kat. That's another, not talking about that goal. For that goal, let's bring a tow truck and
we'll get
ich verstehe, but they verstehen that too as well. They got the shelf, never helped, never yet worked. Almost never.
Could be, but
Well,
the
people don't
1%
change
chance
They-
here, and the guy stand fragen, then you don't stand the 1% chance either.
But let's ignore that, right? Let's ignore that. Ich bin ein curious Mensch. Ich halte sich curious. Ich habe gelernt ein Buch wegen seinem Kat, weil ich habe Gott verstehen, ja? Dort habe ich die representative, ja?
Right.
So, morgen mit einem convinced, also tun ich whatever, it's totally wrong. But can't, by the way, it's a good step down, because you're going to build trust, whatever. I'm not getting into why the tactics are not interesting to me so much. I'm talking about the understanding. Ich halte sich größte Meinung auf der Welt, und ich bin gedacht, dass ich schicke, auszunutzen in der Schuhe, wo sich fuhr auf dem Taxi mit dem Mensch, als ich zu dingen mit dem, to try to get something out of him. I'm talking purely selfish now, Nach ihm helfen, ja, nach ihm helfen. Von dem man treffen, als morgen nicht mit ihm helfen. Jetzt rede ich nicht mehr, jetzt rede ich mich selfish. Ich halte sich größte Versteier. Ich will curious. Ich will wissen, that's according to Socrates, that's what we're born to do. Wir dürfen wissen, Sachen kommen. And I'm not doing that. I can't just get information. Because every more sentence that victim, I lose his trust. He's not going to tell me any information, right? Die sagst, das sind keine information. But das kannst du nicht mit Zweitens, the information doesn't even have to be like theological information. Weiß ich gar nicht. Ich sage, neue Teure von der Rebbe, lass uns ganz nach Muritz. Ich kann aber ja rauszuholen von dem. Focus der information, wie so tracht ein Mensch, was es nebach angesinken in der kommt. Ja? Ich weiß das nicht. Ich weiß, dass der Ori, was ich gesehen, das kommt doch allebige Experiment, ich kann nicht sehen, ja. Dann vertellen wenn der
They
erste
explain the brutality, ich weiß was, does he look at his brutality or does he think that's not so bad or...
Yeah, exactly. How does it look in his eyes, right? This is information. Ich weiß nicht, wie es sieht aus meiner Augen, das ist die Sachen, was ich weiß schon, aber wie sieht das von seiner Perspektive, right? Sein zu dreite, verknackte, mischigene Perspektive. Wie sieht das aus? Could I, another way of saying, if I would know it, I would be able to pretend to be it, right? Morgen, das ist eine von den Exercises, was... One second. Okay. There's eine von den Exercises, was Menschen in certain kind of encounters used to do, right? Could you represent the other side that you're arguing, right? There's nicht beide verschiedene Maturas von dem. For what I'm talking about, it's not because you should, find out that everything is fake, that you can argue both sides of everything. Just los, machen sich halt die verstehst, right? Machen sich halt verstehst, was man hat.
Aber
so,
wenn ich dir zeigt, gesagt hat alles, you really don't care to hear seine Sache beschreiben.
But then I'm fundamentally uncurious. Ich bin interessiert zu wissen.
Ich solche Sachen, aber schon so ungemacht, dass jeder so gefasselt.
Hat schon gedacht. Extreme example, you find the ISIS member.
Yeah.
You're not interested in what the guy wants.
By the way, I'm very curious about ISIS, but it's a very wrong example. I'm very curious.
Yeah?
No, but
you must hear me. Die wird aber
happens to be that I do. Ganz geschickt gesagt, dass ich ein ISIS member, okay? Das ist nicht gesagt, was ich habe.
ISIS?
See, but people...
ISIS.
Daesh. Ja? Da existieren Menschen, die noch... Wenn sie rauskommen nach Eulam, beten mir, aber ich kann das Sachschuh, es verstehen, was ein Shit ist.
Ja,
das ist auch nicht schlecht. Ich kann das schmissen nach zweiter Mal. You just happen to find a wrong bad example in the sense that there is actually a theology.
I'm not ready to
there is
accept
actually,
anything that they say.
Wer kommt daran accept? Das ist auch richtig, das ist jetzt von accepten. Wer zum Verstehen? Ui, morgen, ich war ein Muslimen, ich bin ein echter Gilgul, ich kann werden ein Gilgul, wenn ich als Muslimen reden beruf. Und ich laufe schreiben nach Chief, wo es mir nicht an Eis, ich kann schreiben nach Chief. Yeah, just actually now, I already forgot all the eyes and the Quran. I'm all the yeah. If you don't want, you don't want. Assuming that we want to know something, assuming that we want to understand something. But that was a nice Drusha, it's got nothing to do with anything.
Kitsah, we're talking about Zephyr Vegan land, right? Let's get the boat going.
This is real.
No, we have to. I think if you do it, when I go to the gym, a lot of times it says, how do you do it? Do like this. First you do it. Then I'll show you your mistakes. So first you have to do it. And that's the land. The hype woman. And that's some.
Nou, dat is wat ik wil zien. Dat is ik ben interessiert te leren. So, niet interessiert te leren alles, niet aan. Maar wat ik ben interessiert te leren is... Well, firstly about the subject that we're learning, right? So, in some gelernt, zelf schieren wegen what we call Metzias Hashem. From 2-3 different worlds, from 2-3 different perspectives, zwei andere Sachen, das man beknallt gerade wegen dem. To my eyes, man wirklich versteht, let me say like this, there's a bunch of loops, a bunch of holes left in everything that we learned. Ich weiß nicht, was sie sind, und ich weiß öfter, was sie sind bei mir, ich weiß nicht, was sie sind bei Eng. So, ich wollte gewollt wissen, really, what they are.
Questions, the open questions.
This is the question.
So,
yeah, I'll try to define it even better. I could also try to define what I don't know at all, but what is that probably not relevant to talk about. In some grep. In my mind, there's like 3 big categories that we spoke about. Maybe you could categorize it differently. In some umgebring Rambam, in the way that he conceptualized God. That wegen dem 6 andere Wegen. But to try to rauszubringen, he had a gewisse conception of God that Rambam has and how it fits into the Psikim was gebracht in the Gemuras and the Nazaivater. Number 2, I've been geredet a bisschen and you kind of get stuck in that, so this is something that we probably doesn't count. Or maybe it does count. Honestly, it probably does count, but ich bin allein geworden, was ist stuck. At least, was gestoppt, Platz zurückzukommen. But wir reden wegen, was der Rambam ist. Und es ist connected, versteht sich der erste gesagt, was der Rambam's proofs sind gewesen. For the God, for a God, and more for the kind of God that he thinks of. The third thing that we discussed is the Rambam's Shitta. And try to contrast it to the Rambam, try to show how it's based. It focuses on different aspects. Not a sach doing this, if you want to do that. But that's the 3. And in this, there's thousands of things probably. This is just the picture that I have, the like fuzzy big picture that I have. And like I say, I don't know. Also was ich weiß, da kann ich nicht, das ich nicht von anderen Menschen. Aber was ich weiß, ehrlich nicht, ist was Einkommen gehört von den anderen Sachen. Ich weiß, sag mal so die Sachen in meinem Kopf, sound das ein Weg. Wenn ich so gesagt habe, ganz andere Wege. Völlig allein, kann ich nicht in a recording. I have no idea what I was trying to say. Or it's totally not what I thought I was going to say.
We should mirror you, basically.
I would say you should mirror me, but yeah, but you should...
Communications, mirroring.
Could be,
what did you
more than
understand?
that, what are the things that you don't understand, right? Whatever, it's okay. Not so worried about that.
You don't really know what we're thinking that we understand. That's what you just said.
Nein, ich weiß nicht.
How we accepted what you said.
Ja, ich weiß nicht, wie sie fit daran. And also, you have your own preconceived structures, weil es noch andere Bedingungen im Enkel Campus, wie sie da verantreten. So that's all. Now you have the floor. But ich bin am moderator.
Wie hast du Allah in dem Beziehung Hashem, of the proof was gebracht, ja? The proof hat gewissen, als es du a God?
Who spoke about proofs? Who spoke about
Rambam
proofs?
spoke about proof.
As es du a God?
Ja.
Oh,
Du Gado and andere.
No, what's the question?
Right.
Was hast du gehabt? Was hast du Allah in the proof?
Because of Allah.
Ja.
Like I was saying before, I'm not worried about being right or if it's right that there is a God. Which is gerecht. And we can get into the debate with the atheist, but I'm not worried about that part of love. I'm much more worried about.
Why not? Why not worried?
Personally, I don't care.
Why not? If you're Deutsch Islamists, why not?
Nein, tiefer was geredet, weil das ist nicht am Weg, wie sie mit keiner Währung fliegen. This is exactly the example for what I was talking about earlier.
But okay, you're not willing to listen to the atheist. Maybe you have something knowledgeable
I am definitely
that you
willing
should
to
learn.
listen. Definitely willing to listen. Definitely willing to listen. Definitely willing to listen to everything he has to teach me.
Okay, but you already pre-assume that
I'm not worried
to
that
accept what he's going to say.
No, this is nicht Bechlau.
Was kehrst du?
Das ist nicht Bechlau. Ich bin nicht worried wegen seinem Gerecht. There's a separate discussion. I can't be worried about being right when I'm trying to learn something. I can't be worried about which party is right.
No, but he's asking you a
Ich bin nicht
specific
worried
question.
Bechlau, die Theisten sind gerecht oder die Marinen sind gerecht. Die Theisten sind gerecht. Ich bin nicht worried wegen, I don't care.
Which
Because I don't care.
which part in the proof didn't convince you?
I'm not about convincing you. Convincing me is again about what do I personally, as I don't even know what exactly it means to convince me, personally feel or they are impressed that it's right. I'm nicht worried wegen convincing. Nicht Bechlau man neues. Das schadet sie, man kann es verstehen. Man kann nicht, aber ich will nicht verstehen, der Ende von der Proof.
So, was verstehst du nicht? Ja, aber convince.
Ich nicht alle, was ich verstehe. Ich alle, welche Sort von Sachen ich bin interessiert und zu wissen, ich verstehe. The sort von Sachen is, all of them, and every single, and in all of them I could become smarter, I could learn something by thinking through something verkehrt, that is kann ich sagen, das helfen in this, right? I can kommen at Testen Machmaz besonders without examples. Das du Akasha auf der Proof, es stimmt nicht, ich mache eine ganze logical chart, weiß man, dass es fehlt, ob es Schlag. Okay, jetzt weiß ich, was fehlt. Jetzt weiß ich, dass der Proof kommt nur bis du es ist. Ich nicht an mich, kann dann nicht rum, kann dann nicht, ja, du hast Teretz, aber ich habe Teretz, ja? If du Akasha und Teretz, a good Kasha and a good Teretz are both teaching me something, right? Da gibt Akasha, der Proof hat Tacken nicht, der Reihe hat Tacken nicht, klug nicht der Heilig, man kann sie leider Heilig, ja, klug, ja? Ich habe es gelernt. Oder kann man sagen, man darf nicht stille. Whatever, man darf sagen. Ich habe es gelernt. So, of course, ich mich noch nicht gemacht, wenn ich lernen, sagen von Atheisten verkehrt. Anytime that you, to me, und ich kann nicht sagen, das ist also advice von, man braucht Menschen verstehen nicht, was sie meint lernen, das habe ich immer gesagt. Aber, of course, if you want to learn a proof, or anything, you have to read what the critics of it say, otherwise you don't understand it. Nicht, otherwise you don't know. I'm not worried about giving a chance, giving a fair chance for you. When ich do the UN, ich nicht interessiert zu sagen, geben jeder Zeit a fair chance. Efter bin ich gerecht und efter nicht beklallt der Neues. Ich will wissen, was ist der Beste, was ist der Meiste, was ich kann wissen wegen dem. Dann in der most materialistic, was ist der längste Schiff, was ich kann suchen, okay? Weißt du, ein Joke, man kann schon bringen nach Schiff, man kann es noch machen länger. That's how I look at it, for real. Like, over Atheist schreibt ein scheine Buch, and was the Lecher and all, that's amazing. That can only teaching me. Fragst mich, bin ich geworden, Atheist bin ich nicht du interessiert, ich bin nicht du in der Parche von Wehren gewohnt. Und du die Parche von Stein,
a subject. This subject interests you because the schleppst auf einen Saat.
Schleppt nicht in Engels nicht. Muss interessiert der Schlepp?
If not, that topic wouldn't interest you.
Exactly.
In other words,
No, I don't think so. It interests me because it doesn't have to be like
just
this.
intellectual stimulation, that's what?
No, because it interests me to know everything there is. I could say it in this way, because it interests me.
Yeah.
But ich bin sehr happy. Ich bin sehr happy to that thing.
Guys, like the finger in kalt Wasser von dem.
Yeah.
En de zaad, dat is de heren. Die tapjes wat de rest doe, is dan naar je boek is voor een extra maal om te pikken naar boek.
There's all kinds of random reasons for that, all kinds of accidents that cause that. I don't see that as so important.
Something that you're busy with most of the times of the day can be an accident. And it's like you said a few times, there's no such a thing that Machshuva and Mass are disconnected. You yourself said it a lot of times. There's no such a thing, you just know something. You know you internalize your life is that way, you're a different person.
No.
So it's not stam. And you're saying, you know, ich weiß, das ist du agata, this is nicht du, this is stam, it's an intellectual exercise. It means something, especially
Exactly.
It means nothing. It means something.
It means a lot.
But you have to bracket that out if you want to learn anything.
You can.
You can try a little, but
No, not because
Well,
not only
you
you can't. Not only a question that you can't. I think that's all you're doing. Verkehrt, bist gerecht. Ich kann nicht teilen meine Motivation vermacht dich wäre Sachen Menschen in der Welt, man schaut sich gewinnt. Was Sachen sagen, Menschen öfter offen sein. Die äußern werden eine gewisse Neuse, because they thought they're going to prove a certain thing, and they ended up proving the opposite. That happens all the time, by the way.
We can't do that because if we land on the side, our lives are shattered.
So figure this out the psychology. Ich bin nicht besorgt wegen this. Ich meine,
that is right.
I think you're being a little dishonest.
No, again.
You can't say that you really don't desire cult today. Du musst nur lernen. Du gut schlecht nicht du.
I could. You don't know me enough to understand why I'm saying that. I totally don't care.
As far as
I'm learning is concerned, I don't see. As long as you're
but
trying
a certain
to
subject that
lawyer
you're
for,
interested.
that's true.
Why?
That's true.
Why?
But
Why not interested in the monkeys? Something
again, because when you're interested, in some sense,
percentage.
In some sense, that's random. In some sense, that's because I know a lot about this, so it's examine this. In some sense,
It has a emotional thing to you. It means something to you.
It means everything to you.
Everything means
Exactly.
something to me. No, I don't think it means everything to me.
No?
No.
Again,
Again, please don't talk about me personally because it's
Okay,
not fair because I can't tell you the answer.
We're not talking about you.
We're
We're
not
not
to decide.
Forget about you. We're not talking about you personally. We're talking about as a person. It's not a person that's always taking a certain noises.
I don't think that you
that
once.
has-
I don't think that any conversation. This is a cloud. By the way, this is going to be a rule. If we want, if du allow me to that conversation, was man kann sich etwas lernen. Die Sache, die bist dishonest, is just disqualifying It's not disqualifying. That's not the right word. It's just not an attack. Nicht gesagt. Also halt noch nicht alles. So nicht eine Geier. It just means that you're not in the position of learning. Sie kannst sie halt bewahren, aber die missspielen also nicht so. Because there's no way you're gonna learn anything if you're assuming the person is being dishonest. There's not really a way. I don't know of a way. Kannst du sie halten? I can't. Doesn't even make sense for me to try to convince you that I'm really.
Why are we sitting here and talking about this and now the Bank of Japan?
In other words, nobody would show up if you would be talking about the Bank of Japan.
Not you. Other people.
Exactly. Right. Why are we here?
No, but that doesn't just steal again. The motivation of you to learn about a certain subject, doesn't mean that I need to be biased to a certain side, or not that I'm trying to get to a certain side. I don't see the.
No, you have to be biased to one side. But this subject is something very emotional tone.
I don't think
it's a very emotional thing. That
I don't think so.
Not in a bad way, and not in a good way.
Not in the way that I'm learning. In a separate world, in a separate discussion, in therapy sessions.
So you're separating yourself totally. En de kind van today voor dich, totally was not to leren in
you. Just person again. This is again. Once you ask about you, the language you
learn. I can imagine.
I can imagine a person that this subject, theology, interests him very much, but he loves both sides for real.
How many non-religious people do you know that affect this person?
What's that? Now you're making it personally. Now you're making it personal. I don't care.
But it's all personal.
I don't think that's
no, is it personal?
We have to use examples. It doesn't mean you or him.
Ik ga het zeggen, echt maar één. Je maakt maar een dier. Ik ga het maar één. You have a conversation.
We don't
have echt. This theory.
I really want to get this problem of getting to the conclusion out of this discussion. I feel like it doesn't help at all. It's mamish like my emotion from the cult. As long as you're interested in getting the guy out of the cult, you're not going to understand anything. If you think that it's a big mitzvah to be interested, then beside that, you are not a person that's going to learn anything. So if you ask about me, there are subjects which I know, at least I know that right now I'm mad about this, and I'm probably not listening at all to any other side. Totally not interested in another side, and I don't understand the other side. And tomorrow, and I calm down, and as a person, I don't think I'm so emotionally attached to sides of things, even ones that I scream about. And tomorrow, I'm like in a cooler mood, or next year, or next month, or it's anymore. I could read both sides, and I could, I don't see it as totally nuts like I saw it when I was mad, or like when I was very involved or interested in something. Ich personally kann sich vorstellen, ich kann sich vorstellen, mehr wie dem, ich kann aber einen Teure mit einbringen, $1 million. And there's no, 100% the end is like, etc. And ich habe gesagt, I can give you the gemus, but it's not, doesn't make sense. Erste Dreiter, Ruschemerisch, so ein Babischen, so eine Seite, wenn ich dit mit Menschen, ich werde mir explain them all this. I'm not totally one, ich bin one side, ich represent my side. Ich pretend nicht zusammen der Best, ich bin Zahn, ich sagt, ich bin biased, ja, ich bin biased, ja, ich will sein biased. Ich sage gesagt, was ich will sein biased, das redet von mir, von meiner Mama, von meiner Seite, whatever es ist, und ich gehe dich mal so vor, ich bin gerecht, und jeder sagt, ich kann nicht rausgehen, okay?
Okay, now, that's an
let me finish the story. And then, tomorrow, true story, tomorrow, or when I don't have to represent my side, right, ich kann doch sagen, in einem anderen Kontext, wie nicht mehr hier wird, ich kann Karag and share and another whatever other scenario begangen, much is complicated because everything is connected. But I could give you examples, but not.
A legend of the Shach, also.
The Shach?
That he gefeiert for Zandos, Dros came a cipher, I think verkehrt in these looks. And he was like, Shach, yeah, was gerecht. How come I didn't see it?
So vertel de wel. Yeah. So vertel this mouth.
No, but I'm talking about this same entire. This same entire I could later, and when sometimes I didn't realize that it's mine. So the kids make my zamen. But it's kind of vielleicht weiß ja, and I'm less emotionally involved. Kirsten nicht, dass ich verloren weiß. Anyways, and ich mach, you know, whatever. Then my other should go on anyway, whichever way. Oder schon reingegangen von der Gar anymore, whatever the story was. And now I say, schade, dann wird ich gleich ran in the dying position, in a dritten Schicht, in a objective position. Emotionally, not emotional. Kick. Interesting question, right? Is this the word? Probably if I think a little, I'll very easily get to the thoughts that I have that I'm right, because it's easy, it's closer to me. But which does those difference? Yeah, as bekommen als ein dritter Mensch, kann ich sagen, na hier, ja, keine Sache so. I can give you know what? I mach that band with examples. But like what we were saying before, right? In Zugnas, the heimische Ölen, so Sachmenschen, wo sind sicher gewisse Sachen, ja. Okay, let's say I tell you a story in the 18th century, in the 19th century, it was machlokes about something in the East Cambodia, and by the way, there's always such stories. And it's more or less the same machlokes. And suddenly, kann sagen, es ist auch der primitive Menschen, bei so, ja, wir sind primitiv, sagt alle, was gesagt, ich hab's nicht verstanden. Und ich beschäge, ja, ich habe but like relevant to you, ich doch nicht ständig zu drehen, auf dem Cycle, sort of, whatever sagen. Mit dem Mal, erzähl dich eine Masse, Guide zu dir. You suddenly could understand, and not only could you, what I'm interested in here, you could actually understand the dynamics. Versteht, ich muss sicher nicht gerecht, aber ich verstehe, was, als wenn ich rede, immer alle Sachen, was geschrieben auf ihm, is totally not relevant, because there's a certain thing that's causing him to think that, not even on a gear, a good reason, it's a gerecht. In a certain bigger picture look, it's a gerecht. It's not gerecht. And suddenly, you actually learn something. Kannst du sogar schief, kannst jetzt mal sagen, der zweite Zahn, kannst jetzt du es zu lernen, du hast etwas klar geworden, and it could even help you tactically if you think you're not, but that's already another question I'm not worried about.
Die is jeden Tag, wenn du lernst, Halachas. You don't take sides.
Well, some people do.
Wenn es ist eine Geier, dann
No, you don't take sides. Not that anyways, schreibt mich eine Brille kriegen, but the lens is you go both ways. Yes, beide gerecht. You hear them, the lessons of data, and this beide, both are very good.
So you learn.
And then you learn something, right? And then you will know something better about this subject, you see? And you could say, why am I learning this? Because I care about this subject. And therefore, both of them are like.
But if you really want to be smart about it, you have to think, was what ich gesagt.
But what ich will gesagt change very quickly. At least in my experience, at least in people that I talk to. People that don't change their mind, they're usually stupid. They're not because they have good minds, they're just dumb. It's the Tana, it was the Shachat God. Usually when they like the Shachat God, none of them are crazy. Usually, I'm okay, I'm not crazy. But gemeinlich, I feel that the Shachat is crazy, but can sich aufstehen von noch, als sind von der zweite Zeit ist crazy. So I realized, okay. Man kann verstehen, man kann rechnen so,
Pluralism.
Not pluralism, it could be that one is right. It could be that in the end of the day I think that one is right. I'm not worried about it. I'm just saying that the act of learning, you have to assume that it's not about the gears only. It's not only about proving that you're right.
Well, shouldn't put him you can be right.
Das ist schon eine Schale, was sich tief, wenn ich verstehe, beides zu dem Ziel geht. Then yeah, that's the question of pluralism. I'm not worried about that question. I'm worried about the question of learning anything. And yes, it's true that when the rest ziehst du agot, a lot of mention don't know how to do that, but I don't think it should be so complicated. I said, nicht kaschiert, sie müssen sagen, afre mei.
So let's get the topic. This is given the loch in the proof. I felt as the proof in the Matthias for the God.
I'm asking you, no, if you're not
no,
He's telling you.
No, I felt as the as do I it's missed when it ends and some
Begin met zien.
Ja. Meines ist da, ich habe noch in meinem Kopf, habe ich etwas, was direkt mich kennt.
Kennen?
Ja.
Very good. So what's the problem?
Nou, is ook, had een lachen there.
No, you're arguing with me. No. I didn't say there. I didn't say I didn't necessarily raise it. I said that. No. So just get.
Oh,
Who said it's a cut?
I said that you should tell.
The oil is a cadman and the oil is
I said you should tell me what your holes are. I didn't say that there necessarily are holes. I think that it's possible that some people have holes.
That hole that he mentioned a long time, we never resolved it. That cadmus or oilam, with God, it can't be that God, even though they started together, one isn't one before the other. There's no such a thing. If one is causing, if A is causing B, then A is before B. There's no other way around it.
Ich habe verstanden. Deze mensen verstaan.
If you think about it, if somebody, even without time, if something is causing something else,
must be
then he
before
must be before it. Otherwise, he's not. Otherwise, that's
Daarom
causality is
According to
going
you.
to be.
Daarom zegt de Mishnah, ich habe das verstanden.
Well, the Rambam doesn't say that.
That's
The
like
Rambam
He says, I can totally help him as well the Kadman.
not as a Kadman, but it's still that he's not before God. He still believes that it's a
At the
sin.
same time, Kadman is eigenlijk. Aber God is meer mechier wie der. Ich habe das verstanden.
Exactly. That's a whole that we never found.
I actually don't think that
Ooit
the
met de eigenlijk, in is de mechier.
Ich lerne nicht klicken, that's the question.
No, it happens
Let's
randomly.
No, I think
let's take this
something.
thing. I actually not getting smart.
De welk minder zaam doet, het is niet meer.
If you're a cause of something,
random.
then you must
God
be
is a cause,
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
Meer zijn zaam
Explaining what
staan.
it has to be.
because if you're causing it, then you're here first.
Question.
If I'm causing my child, I'm before my
No,
child.
you know the example. They always give the example of the shadow, right?
Right.
Who's causing
so,
shadow?
So I'm
There
still
will be-
before my shadow. I'm still before my shadow.
There's never a time that
It
you're
doesn't
back.
have to be in time and seconds. That's how in logic how things work. It's just like I am.
But there doesn't
Or
have to be
my
any
shadow.
En nog de in de
But there doesn't
shadow.
have to be any time where you exist without your shadow.
Correct. Correct.
That's what it
But 1 second. But the fact that you're a cause of it doesn't have to be time and second.
Yeah, but
Causes and effects is in a way of saying time also. Time is
Emotional
cause and effect.
Deze agreed that
But eigenlijk naam, deze voor dem de Rambam
Changes,
is ons
right?
geleerd. Dem de Rambam
Cause
is does the Rambam calls God more Kadman than the Olam
Exactly.
Kadman, even
Sure.
the shit is Olam Kadman, but
Right.
not in time. There was no time that the world didn't exist. Although God is
Right.
prior to it, logically.
Correct. Okay. We
So explaining
can agree
how-
with that
Sure.
somehow.
No, but if it's
No, but cause and effect is a way of
you call it
time.
time effect.
If it's not time, then we're fine. Then you're still
But there's a
Kadman
logic.
Torah.
But it's not what I'm saying. There's still a logical thing that he's more thing
And
than
the Rambam is
somebody
okay.
else.
That's the ganze idea from the Rambam. That's exactly what he thinks. Or he
So in one split second is geworden de God in de wereld.
Seconds.
No, beide zijn eigen
Ik ga
gegeven.
het best even.
Nein, beide zijn eigen gegeven.
Well, one is a cause and one is an effect.
Maar ooit ben ik gewend van woest is God de cause van hem.
What do you mean? Why are you a
Maar jij bent de
cause?
cause.
Why are you a cause for your
En ze
shadow?
is wel de cause van God.
No, so this is a different question, right? Now you're asking a question.
No, the same thing. Gaan proeven, cause mijn zo'n niet gekost.
What is God? First define what is God. Mechiv HaMetzias? So how can you
Something
say that
must be.
the welt is Mechayiv and Mechiv
Zo,
HaMetzias?
zo hebben we dat ook is eigenlijk gewend, is dit ook Mechiv HaMetzias. Zwaar Mechiv HaMetzias. We hebben beide
Can't be
gewend
Mechiv
eigenlijk.
HaMetzias.
Of we hebben beide eigenlijk gewend.
So when, okay, but let me, ich kann noch eine Sache, ich will wissen, was die davon looks for.
He's asking why can't there be two Mechiv HaMetzias?
I think that these are, no.
Because one has to
that's
be
not-
truly in another one.
Of
In
we
general,
hebben
any kind of question that you could ask on this, to me, is legitimate in the sense that you will find some serious philosopher who's looked at unity.
You will find some?
Serious philosopher who's looked at everything. No, was von dem lerne ich nicht ganz Sachen. Nu muss ich kannst keine sagen. Es macht nicht keinen Sinn zu reden wegen causality without time. Like some people would say that. All causality means is
Change.
it's kind of all causality is something before that happened, and therefore we think that this caused that. And therefore, it doesn't really make sense to talk about causality without time differentiating that. Kind of this, but you wouldn't be crazy.
Wieso?
I think that you're saying something similar to that, but something different. And then you're saying that you have a difficulty differentiating eternity and necessity. That's a different focus. See, each of these things we could actually think about and try to become smarter about. Meanwhile, we're not just arguing. So all these arguments are not really, why is it not from there? I think that you can ask a different question, which is, what would it actually mean to talk about something that's eternal but not necessary? That's a different question, right? Maybe the whole concept of necessity doesn't really mean anything. It's just a way of saying things that are forever. And if you agree that the world is forever, then you basically said that it's necessary, and therefore it is God, or you don't need another God for it, or something like that.
Yes.
This is noch andere Kasche. This is ein Kasche.
Ja, maar is alles
Zwei andere Kashes. When I say that's zwei andere Kashes, to you they're the same thing, because they both disprove the same thing. But I'm not looking to disprove or prove something. I'm looking to understand. So, they will verstehen, sagen kann, wir darf verstehen, the mass von causality. Not verstehen, was mein, und wir von Sibes, and therefore, I should verstehen, was kommt daraus von dem Legabe, der Neueste von Sibes und Sibes. Right, aber darf besser verstehen, der Missig von Sibes, right? So, ist ein leider schwere Neueste, daran, mit, du wie, ich sehe alles, du wie, was ich kann lernen, du a Missig Sibes, aber da verstehe, was meint, exactly. Das ist eine Arbeit ist, what's the proof that exists, ich glaube, man kann fragen nach Sachen, kann lernen nach Sachen. Wieder zu einer anderen Missig, so ein Missig, was heißt, der Kadmus, oder Nitzchies, Eternity, da sagt man sein Eibig. Und ich will wissen, ich komme da sehr, also das Wissen, nicht das ist nicht der einzigste Konzept, was ist relevant to, right? Noch ein Konzept, das heißt Necessity. Ich kann dann sagen, das ist Eibig, ob es hat nicht gemisst sein Eibig, pinkt ist das Eibig. Ich kann dann sagen, was nicht. Das ist nicht das simple Konzept. Andere, den darf man kicken extra. Auf den kann man trachten extra. These are all things that are legitimate to think about. I don't know. So was jetzt trachten wegen dem. Es ist besser, wenn so macht, ja, sonst macht nicht.
So, wo ist gewinnt der Rambam's point? Kann ich sparen der Rambam's point?
Ja, das denkst du noch.
Nein, ich verstehe es nicht. Aber ich verstehe, denke ich mir nicht. Ich kann nicht sagen gegen den, ich verstehe es nicht, was soll ich bedingen? Ich kann nicht keine Gier, das verstehe ich, was ich mir bedingen.
Not sure, what don't we know? Do you know the difference?
He doesn't understand that.
Do you know the difference between something that's necessary and something that's eternal? Or do you think that they're the same thing?
If something is eternal, it's necessary.
Why? Explain me the connection of these two concepts.
What makes a thing not necessary? Als dat moet geweten.
Nein, ich glaube nicht.
Wieso ist das ein Teil von das?
That's a third question.
No.
I don't know, you're asking a third thing.
Yeah. How do I know something?
These are just different concepts.
How do I know something is not necessary?
It's not about knowing. Gerät doch wegen der Concept. The concept macht Sinn. Weil am Reden ziehen, wie man weiß, dass
There's only one thing that is necessary, which is the Mechir HaMetzius.
Yeah, you don't have to have two.
There's only one thing that is really necessary.
De ganze Welt, without it is eternal.
Nothing is necessary.
Mechir HaMetzius.
But
Is
that the same thing? But is that the same thing?
No.
It's not the same thing.
It's not. He's not the Mechir
So how do you get
HaMetzius.
for random?
The Mechir HaMetzius doesn't mean that he always was. It's two separate things.
How do I know that something is a Mechir HaMetzius?
Because then
One second.
means that
I
there
want to
is
stop this
something
debate.
that's
I know what is the
Yeah.
we're just arguing now. This is useless to me.
Well, no, you're
No, I'm trying to
he's
understand. You think I'm trying to argue? I don't understand this whole concept.
But you have to learn.
I think you have to explain Mechir HaMetzius better. What's Mechir
You have to
HaMetzius?
learn how to discuss things without doing, because this is what we do every week, and this is useless. Keiner noch gewonnen fliegen von der discussion.
Sure, he wants to know, define what is Mechir HaMetzius. What is Mechir? What is that? What is the Mechir HaMetzius? If he explained that, go on.
No.
That's where he stopped.
Again, ich interessiert mich mehr. Ich will verstehen, wie soll mit das besser, weil das ist nicht am Weg.
I'm telling you, he wants to understand what is this Mechir HaMetzius.
By the way, whenever you say something what he thinks, he doesn't think what you're thinking. Almost
Really?
never. Every time when I ask him, he says no.
Ask him.
So maybe it's not a good idea to interpret other
Ask
people.
him.
That's number one. No, couldn't go. Just a rule. Maybe it's not a good idea.
Ich will sagen,
Maybe it's not a good idea. How many concepts? How many concepts do you have? In other words, what kind of world are you living in? What kind of philosophical world do you have in your mind when you start asking these questions? Like, was versteht die von dich redet wegen der Missig von Necessity, was meint es zu dich? Ich rede von der Missig von Eternity, was meint es zu dich? And so on. You whole time seem to be asking a question, wie sie weiß dich? Nicht jetzt, das ist noch eine extra Chance. Es kann sein, dass es macht Sinn, dass die just don't exist. Alle Sachen können sein.
Ich kann nicht
dass die zwei Sachen sagen, geht.
Du stehst es so. Ob ist eine Sache nicht gewinnt, wie du, weiß ich, ist nicht necessary.
But again, you're talking about wie sehr ich weiß. I totally don't care about wie sehr ich weiß. Assume that I'm just making stuff up. Ich habe just
Make up
I can make stuff up. I'm not worried about wie sehr ich weiß. Wie sehr weiß ich ist nicht der Neueste. Wie also immer heichete ist, als du das Cranberries. Gibt es schon eine heichete ist. Ich habe gesehen, einer verzeiht, alle meine Wege, wie sehr ich weiß. Cranberries macht sense. Du hast gesagt Cranberries. Is cranberries dieselbe Sache wie Grapefruit? How do we know that cranberries are the same thing, different from grapefruit? Because they're just two different things. Was ist eigentlich das Cranberries with grapefruit? You understand?
He's
It's
talking
these are
about
biases
all
Wenn
like-
rest von der Sache, it is necessary, it is nicht necessary. So
Why
if
is
it is
it
necessary, is the cause for the nicht necessary.
The other way around. It goes the other way around.
No, why?
Because he is the cause of everything, then that's why he is necessary.
But this is all, you're still talking
No.
about Mahaichatais. Ich will nicht jetzt reden wegen Mahaichatais. Could we do that?
Verstanden Sie so?
Yeah, I also understand what you're saying.
Again,
We
you are
have
two
to
different.
define things. We're trying to define things.
The definition of necessity is so hard to understand. Is that the problem?
Yes.
You don't understand the
So you
concept?
explain it.
Let's talk about the concept. Then let's try to talk about the concept in itself, because I think that nobody...
Exactly, that's what I'm telling you all the time.
What's the
Explain
problem with this concept?
the concept of Mechiv
What's the
HaMetzias
problem
and
with the
necessity.
concept? Explain me what the problem with the concept was. Was it
He understands, I'm saying for him, but whatever. He understands that Mechiv HaMetzias is something that's eternal. It goes together.
I always don't understand the connection with these two things.
I don't
Eternal
know.
is green. It makes
I'm
just as much
just
sense.
repeating
to
what
me.
he's saying. I don't understand.
Eternal things are green, but unnatural
Yeah,
things are
explain.
orange. Was das eigentlich von den zwei Sachen?
Yeah, I don't know what the connection is. I'm just repeating.
When,
Why not? Ich genug wegen zu machen connection.
when we're saying the necessary is the cause of the not necessary.
Ich rede nicht jetzt von Kurs. Ich kehre nicht jetzt, was sagt Kurs zu was. Ich frage dich eine andere Schale. The concept necessity, was meint das? Macht Sinn oder es macht nicht Sinn?
So macht es als Sachen, was ein Misan?
Yeah.
Ich weiß nicht.
The concept macht Sinn. Du hast das nicht, dass es exist als das sagt. Nicht, dass es exist als das sagt. The concept macht Sinn. Do we understand the difference between things that
Als Sache Misan,
do we understand the difference in theory between things that are necessary and things that are not necessary, things that are contingent? That Mizan meint nicht als etwas macht es sein, right? Mizan, very bad translation, right? Nämlich comes up necessity. Sachen, was kenne ich dann anders, right? Ein anderer Weg, am mehr mit der Weg von so das ist, ich kann sich nicht vorstellen, kann Shim Universe und was ist anders, und wie ist es anders. Right? For all possible universes, it's like this. That's what necessity is supposed to mean. That's the concept, at least that's claimed to be the concept, right? The concept makes sense?
Yes.
Why answering for your anything? So makes sense, those are that?
ja.
Kind of like the Meshulim and at least logically necessary things, right? That's always the example that we easy to show, right? One and one is always the same as one. or let's say 1 and 1 is 2, it's very a complex thing to say, but let's say 1 and 1 is 2, that's true in every possible universe. It's necessarily true, right? It's not something that something has to make true, right? That's another way of saying necessary. Necessary is something that doesn't need a maker, right? Keiner hat nicht gemacht 1 und 1 2. Right? I feel that I'm supposed to gemacht. I think that's really what we're getting at in some sense, right? Keiner hat nicht gemacht 1 und 1 ist 2. Es ist 2, right? Kili by definition. Kili was 1 und 1 ist das erste Sache, was ist 2. Und es kann nicht nach Kashim Oilem, wie es ist anders. Kashim, God, there's no possible, it's necessary, right? Also ich habe du 2 Fish, 2 strawberries. Is this necessary? Probably not, right? It's very easy to imagine that I don't have 2 strawberries, which is actually true. So not only is it not necessary, it's also not true. But imagine there'll be 2 strawberries there, it would still not be necessary that there be 2 strawberries, right? It's pretty easy to imagine that there wouldn't be, right? So this is the concept. So the concept makes sense.
Yeah.
Ja.
So that's the concept. Now, the idea of Avicenna was, and the Chedish in the proof, that's the idea, was that therefore, so nicht kein Problem zu reden von 2 Sachen. Eins heißt Gott und 2 Sachen heißt die Welt. Beide können sein auf Eibig. But eins ist gemisst sein auf Eibig, der andere nicht gemisst sein auf Eibig. In eine andere Reality, Kelly, but ist nicht du kann Welt, mir nicht sein kann Welt. Gerade ist du eine Welt. But it doesn't have to be.
And why can't say the same thing of the andere?
What do you mean the same thing of the andere? Not right.
God is du a God, it's a Mensch a God.
Noch einmal. We're defining God as the necessary thing. That's the definition right now, for now. Jetzt wird es in der Reihe, Farvos. Ich rede jetzt von Farvos.
We are defining him, why are we defining
Ich halte
him?
noch Fahr der Reihe. Ich halte noch Fahr der Reihe, also in der Reihe. Farvos kann sein, Farvos kann nicht sein. According to him, there's nothing incoherent, that's the big thing. There's nothing incoherent, es macht sense zu reden wegen 2 Sachen, was ein Eibige wenig, ein Eibige sein. Eins is necessarily so, and the andere is nicht necessarily so. That to him this makes sense because these are 2 separate concepts and they make sense. John, that's all I kind of need for this.
So
this
jetzt
point.
geht's in der Reihe.
And the Raya is very complicated. The Raya I can't tell you in its entirety about that. True answer.
Raya for what?
Where the Raya as that anything necessary exists.
As God is necessary, yeah? It's something not necessary.
God means necessary being. That's what the word God means to him. Every time. This is the time.
So why did we decide that God is necessary?
That's not a question.
It's the same thing.
God, it means necessary.
Well,
You can ask the question, how did we decide that a necessary being exists? Well, we understand the concept, right? Why does God exist? That's what you're asking. Who says that God exists?
Why did we decide that
Because
God
otherwise
is
you never
necessary?
finish. You never finish the sentence.
God is necessary. I don't understand what your question is.
It's about
God means a necessary thing. That's the definition of God, right? That's the
No,
term.
schrijf dus.
Maar deze zaak definition, dus bij één iedereen. Wat meint dat God? God meint dat was mij zaak. Wat meint bij hem God?
This is what's not.
That is what to him it means. That's the definition of it.
The only true thing because
That's what
MS
the
and
definition of God is, to have a sin. God is the necessary existent. And you could ask, who says there is such a thing? Maybe nothing is necessary. Maybe there's only contingent things, right?
Yeah.
We are Schneiman, we do sogar so die, was kann ich sagen, alles ist contingent.
well, then you never finish.
Something like that. Something like the same problem of never finishing. That what made that exist?
Is aangehouden als zeg kennis aan bezend, ja? Ze missen als mensen
So whatever you want to call
As
it.
either is necessary.
Exactly.
Alles contingent.
Exactly. Somewhere you have to get to.
Why can't we just say that the world, being that it's eternal,
Yeah, you could say that.
is not contingent? Yeah, but Rambam doesn't say that.
Nah, we said also, to break the catch.
But Rambam
The theoretist, because then you're basically, according to Avicenna, and we can't mind on what's a man, but the theoretist is that you're just saying that there's a God. He didn't change anything, he's just playing with words. That's what he thinks.
Oh, he's saying there's
obviously-
no other step. That's
No,
it.
the thing is like this. Obviously, these things that we know are not contingent, right? Because they stop existing at some point, right? Only question is the entirety of the world, the entirety of the chain of the universe, which is the only really eternal thing, right? In time. If that whole thing is necessary, does it make sense that the chain of things, that's and you'll see that there's problems with it. He actually thinks that it might work in some sense. But there's problems with it, right? Can the whole chain of contingent things be necessary? What would that even mean? How could a contingent thing be made out of a bunch of necessary things be made out of a bunch of contingent things? That's very weird, right? Was is the einzigste Sache, was nitzchi in the world? Nothing in the world is actually nitzchi, right? Time is the only thing that's really nitzchi, right? The world exists in time forever, right? That's Aristotle's theory, right? Maybe the heaven is nitzchi, maybe the heaven has, the body of the heaven exists forever, right? But what that really means is that it exists in all times, right?
in all times.
At all times,
Okay.
right? So was the often as was welche part von der Lust des Sultan of Eibig?
Zoekst aan de wereld, eigenlijk exists in all times. It's not contingent on anything. So it's a
No, it obviously is contingent because it's made out of contingent things.
But how can it be made of contingent if you're saying it's necessary?
No, it's not necessary. I'm not saying it's necessary. You're the one saying it, proposing it to be necessary. I'm trying to show you how it doesn't really make sense.
So
It might make sense in some weird way, but the Pashtas it doesn't make sense because the world is not necessary, right? We know it to be not necessary.
how do we
We
know?
just know it to exist forever. That's a different thing. Again, now you're going back to the previous thing that you already agreed to me that necessity and existing forever are not the same thing.
But it's not the same thing. It's helping jetzt weg from theory and concepts. See that I've
Again, the value of is nicht contingent, is nicht necessary, right?
weiß nicht.
That's the nice.
Just gonna say eternal.
It's obviously not, right? We don't need proofs.
Why not?
What do you mean, why not?
If the
Because
world
because all of the things in it that change, all of the things in it change, all of the things in it become and go away.
what comes out go away? The plan is einmal.
Nog einmal, de Welt, alle Sachen in der Welt tauschen sich,
In the world,
which means that
the
they're not
world.
eternal.
The world.
So what do you mean by the Welt? No, the tauscht sich auch.
The world.
No, the Welt doesn't stay forever. Also, no, it changes, it moves. So in other words, it's not
The move is einmal gewesen.
That's I big event. Now the sticklich muss es gemacht, like tauschen sich apart. He doesn't think of things like that. He doesn't think of there's anything that is literally
So
I
like
big
how
event.
the soil, but
Als halt een existieren.
Was.
The Welt. All the things in it. But
Universe,
in a
basically.
chain, right? Not the same thing doesn't exist forever.
The earth is nicht selber earth. Soil.
It keeps on changing.
Keeps
on changing.
That's something that we figured out later.
No, it means that it exists in time forever.
It's something that we know later, that we figure science figured out much later.
Nein, Erhalt ist
Ja, aber kann das. Ich habe nicht kann das Soil.
Was Erhalt ist, the Welt exists in einigen Zeit.
What part?
But not literally, nothing is actually
What
eternal.
part? Just our planet?
All of the
Sun,
parts, noch
wicked?
einmal, alles. Alles exists für Eibig. Alles, du siehst, das geht ungefähr für Eibig. Und eine von den Sachen, die siehst, geht nicht bleiben auf Eibig. People don't live forever, it's very simple. But they will be people forever, right? Versteht du, Chilik? Wir sagen das, you will exist forever and there will be people forever. He thinks something similar about everything, right? Technically, I don't know.
Ich denke nicht für den Menschen in der Welt. Ich denke für die Welt.
It's the same thing. To him, it's the same thing. Everything in the world keeps on changing. Everything we know will change. Nothing doesn't change.
Der Stein changes?
Of course. Changes. Steine werden Wassens and so weiter, of course.
Jetzt auch so, das habe ich
Ja,
gerade.
das hat noch, sicher. Sicher, egal.
Who's in?
Sicher.
Der Scientist, der Institute, whatever.
Kicken an beim Paraguay, wie soll das tun? Alles toscht.
Weil er hat das schon gerade mit Säule.
Okay. At least he thinks that this makes sense with carbon soil. That's the problem. Of course. What I'm saying is that you're proposing for the chain of necessary contingent things to be necessary, which is a very weird thing to propose. In some sense, right?
Ich habe schon gedacht, der ganze Halten, der Welt, der Stein, ewig gewesen. Nothing changed. Ja, Menschen kommen und gehen. The Bible kommen und gehen, Brüche kommen und gehen. But the Welt,
Alles changed.
Alles
Alles
changed.
changed. It means that everything changes. Everything changes.
I think
It actually changes eternally. It
it's
changes forever.
relatively
Forget.
later scientific
Nine,
philosophy
nine,
that
nine.
there's nothing that comes and goes in the world. Everything is, energy stays and
Okay, the health is
and
supposed to heal.
supposed to, but it's all the same. Let's say water becomes gas and gas becomes this, but at the end of the day it comes back. Everything, there's nothing more,
But
nothing
you
less,
can say the same thing
or the
about-
whole energy of and the whole
This
material
is
of the
how
world.
we talk. Ich weiß, was das
Right.
meint relevant today. Ich weiß, was du meinst relevant. Ich weiß nicht, was
I'm one of the interested in
ich
that.
weiß, was das meint relevant today. Today the kid was reden.
You're saying that everything is eternal. But like he said before, look, the stone is, once it's,
No, it's not. It's obviously
it's
not.
gone, it's gone.
It's not.
You turn on a Heißwasser Castle, the best young. They didn't know that it's
No, of
actually...
course they knew. They were not that stupid. Of course they knew. That was the command. They didn't necessarily turn it back. What do you mean? If we can't have this discussion, if you never read that, of course he knows that the water doesn't go away when you cook it. But eventually, somehow it does go away. In other words, it keeps on changing. So it's not
Changes,
not
right,
necessarily
exactly.
the way it is. Keine Ahnung, nicht, als alle Menschen einfach auf Eibig ist, nicht gehen, das kann man so.
This mentioned, imagine the actual bull,
Nein, auch nicht. Because the bull is already changing. We see it moving. What are you
Yeah,
talking
but
about?
Moving but not change.
It might move forever.
you know what, call it the
In time.
universe, not
It might
the world,
move
the
forever.
universe.
But all of the parts of it and all the links in the chain are each one of them basically is nicht Eibig. Ist nicht eine necessary Sache, also tauscht sich. Nicht das ist mehr der Schale.
Ich verstehe, kann man so sagen, halt ist der Welt, der Ball.
It turns
This
forever.
shape-
This is literally what he thinks. All the chains will keep on going on forever and has gone on forever. That's what he thinks. He doesn't think that there's necessarily anything that is forever.
He doesn't think.
There's any
No.
matter that's forever.
That's not true. He does think that it's forever, not in the way that we look at it as things. But
In time, again, it keeps on existing. It keeps on changing forever. But
Keeps on existing forever.
Otherwise, of course, otherwise this whole proof would never work. Because this whole proof is based on the fact that there's no eternity in actuality, right? That's nicht du kannst eins auf den Ball. Okay, because this is Allah, warum haben wir gelernt, gibt Anlag Dummes von der Rambam, und dort und auf den zweiten Heilig, das sind noch 10 Mal. Und dann gehen Kopf alle Sachen noch, dann gehen wir den Klo wegen. Das stimmt ja, das stimmt nicht, das war alles, was ich gelernt.
I'm not confused.
Man,
More than I'm confused.
how
you
something
got
can
today
be a
more confused
talde,
than until today, yeah?
That's a good thing.
how could it will be a talde of God if it always was?
My castle.
That's a little
So you
different.
No, it's nicht, I'm stein nicht. Also look, that shadow is yours, and it always exists as long as yours exists, and the light source exists. That's the silly motion that they keep on bringing.
Yeah, but I started before.
Think,
And
happens
it
to be,
became a
happens to be,
sperm, and-
happens to be. What was this wichtig?
Family emotional with cause and effect were at the same time.
I just gave you the emotional.
But the family emotional is ook gewend vaak.
Was like, but you're not causing it before.
But the family emotional was.
No, it's silly. You,
But
as
it's
long
not
as you're not going to be able to reason abstractly, all Muslims in the world are not going to help you. You need to realize that causes don't have to precede their effects in time. Everyone agrees with this. Things cannot be
But
simultaneously.
that's what time is.
That's not what time is. No.
Time is change, basically.
Ich weiß, was mein
Time, the Rambam says that time is change.
By the way,
How does
shadow
time
also
happen?
takes time. It just takes very fast.
These are so in Zan Mushla, at least assuming it is Mushla, I don't know if that's true.
What do you mean? There's a speed that it happens. It's
The speed of light.
Yeah. It's just
Exactly.
very, very fast.
In other words, cause and effect is time.
Right.
Mushla. So again,
He says very good, I get gesund.
but ich verstehe, was mein Plan mit der Conversation,
Nein.
right? Sitzen Menschen, die sonst kein Missig, was man redt. Und er sagt, ich kann at least diese Tracht von that time, I don't know what concept that you think is a modern concept. In his world, and
Who's his?
philosophically, in the Rambam's world, time is not needed. You do not need to be before anything else to cause it. And I think that's logically, that logically, all that logically is true right now. I was just saying.
You don't have to be before something else to cause it?
No. No, why
You
would
would be
you?
after it and cause it? It doesn't make sense.
You need to be the same time. That's all you need to do.
There's no,
If cause does not
so I
what do you mean?
there's
Of
no such a
course.
thing.
Of course.
Cause and
Why is there no
effect
such
is...
a, that's again, so you basically come from Schmies, but again, not even getting any smarter than this. You define cause and effect by necessarily being before.
Yes.
I don't see any reason why it would have to be like that. Maybe
It's a
find me
logical conclusion. I mean,
logical what?
What makes something logical and not
You're not even doing
logical?
logic.
Exactly.
No, you see,
what makes something logical?
No,
What
what are you
makes
talking
something
about?
logical and not
You
logical?
need to define a concept and then show me
That
why it
does-
doesn't make sense otherwise. You're just making statements that make sense to you. That's not logic. That's just saying things.
That is logic.
Because
No, of
cause
course
and
not.
effect is one thing.
That's
from
not
the
what it is.
other.
You das nicht. Jetzt haben wir das mal kennengelernt.
Yeah,
I got
yeah,
ja, nein. You see why this is a stupid
What if
conversation?
something makes
I mean,
logical?
ich verstehe, warum this is
No. If I say 1 + 1 is 2, it's 59. 1 + 1 is 3.
Exactly. So then, therefore, this is a useless conversation. Then, therefore, you have to
So
show
it's a
it to me in
logical
some way.
thing.
So
That's
that baby
what-
show it to me.
Because
That
in
is what-
every instance
that
in
is
this
what-
world that we
that is
know, the cause comes before effect.
Exactly.
That's
Show me
absolutely-
one
that's
instance
absolutely
that is
true.
different.
Show me-
Show one
that's
instance.
true.
Show one instance.
I mean, couldn't go, you just made like this huge statement like,
Yes.
show me 5 things where we understand what cause means.
Ich habe caused my
Every
kid.
single thing that there's a when you
You
turn on
know,
your
that's
car,
not-
when you turn
that's
on your
not
car, there's a
essential.
cause and there's an effect. When you have a kid, there's an effect.
What was
When
the
you're
example?
walking, you pick up your foot and you
Aber
put
was
it
ist das
down.
angehalten? Then show us the
Because that's the definition of the word
That's the
effect.
thing,
That's not the
That's
definition.
not-
That's definitely, by the way, that's not definitely.
Nobody-
You have to
defining
find one
it.
example. Give you one example.
I
That
just
is
gave you an
one
example of the
For what?
shadow.
And he
don't
told
think
you
you
that
can
answer.
answer you.
And nicht, I'm you're taking cautious from science. I'm not interested in science here.
What do you mean
Which
that's
is logic.
science?
You have to be interested in science.
Not at all.
You have to give me an example
Not
that
at
is
all.
true.
Not
The
at
cause
all.
and effect happen at the same time.
Totally
Please
not.
find me
Totally
a
not.
real, true example of that.
If you will be able to slow down at the speed of light,
Ich verstehe, wo es keine, ich will nicht verstehen. Ich verstehe, wo es von der Sache, ich will keiner nicht fliegen.
So mach ich fliegen.
Totally useless. This
yes,
conversation.
because you're going against facts.
So, I'm not going against anything. You decide that something is a fact.
No, but that's how the world works. There's a cause and effect.
Das ist was wir gerne haben. Miskel richten ist so, and I don't
Ja,
have a
dat is
good
waar.
life.
Ja, maar schraag komt dus ook.
Give an example.
Kinderlich.
You're saying something that's against the way we perceive
not
the
at all.
world.
I have no
You're
idea.
saying a chiddush. You have to prove a chiddush.
I don't even know what this means. I just don't understand what you're asking because you don't have. You're not.
When you turn the door, you expect the door to turn, right? Because
What
you
is your
caused it
rhythm?
to turn.
The concept in
What happened
cause,
first? You
isn't
turned
the
it or
concept? Isn't it the concept?
What do you mean this is the concept?
This is a master. Ich rede a concept in causes, concept of cause in a certain sense, in the Aristotle sense, definitely. For example, your body causes you to exist, and your neshama, right? Does the neshama have to exist before there was a body? No, according to him, no, of course not. Right?
I don't understand what you're saying. Nobody understood what you just said. So
What do you mean?
Explain it, please explain it.
I don't understand what you just said.
What do you mean?
Sure.
There's no
Body,
necessity.
neshama,
The concept-
body, I don't understand.
The concept of a cause has nothing to do with priority and time. You just think of examples where it has a shaykh, but think of the concept. The concept of shaykh zwei Sachen.
I don't know how to define a concept of jedes moment ich got a cause, again, father fact.
That's
How
not true.
how
I just told you
define
quickly,
it?
I just told you the example of
You
the
didn't.
shadow.
You understood.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
that's
did.
not true example.
It's not. What do you mean? It is true. Of course, it's
No,
true. By the way, it is true. It is true. He's talking about the light, but you are causing your shadow in the sense. In whatever sense you're causing your shadow, it happens in the same time. In the same time.
Well, it doesn't.
What do you mean it doesn't?
It's just how it
It's
does.
not true. He didn't explain that at all. He explained something
very
totally
well.
different.
That the reason why it looks
Oh,
like
damn.
it's simultaneously is because we don't have the eyes to be
Nein,
able to see things.
how
they're really going,
doesn't
what
have
happened
for the
about
light to get
Exactly.
black. But that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about you causing the shadow. He's talking about the light getting to you, right? In what sense do you cause your shadow?
Right.
You didn't create it, right?
Right.
But you make it happen. It's not for you, it will not exist. So you are, in some sense, a cause of the shadow, right?
Correct.
So
And you are
do you need to do something for it? No, you're not.
And you don't have to do all
You're
the
not.
things.
You're not. In causing it, you're not before it at all.
Why not?
You're just not.
The light is not them, but the mass
You're not.
is shaped spontaneous.
The eights in the
The
gap, and there's a
Zelda was
cause
the
and
exist,
effect.
and the Zelda is a cause.
means that one
That's
comes
not
after the
true.
other.
And again, imagine things can happen, but it's in the same time in the world. There might be such things.
Wait, give me an example of things happen
I
at the
mean,
same
there
time.
never two things that happen at
No.
the same time. It's called
So each one has its own
Give me an
cause.
example, please.
Everyone has its own. Give me an example. Give me an example. Give an example of two things happen at the same
So
time.
I can understand the concept.
Yeah.
I just gave you the example.
Give me another example.
Wait.
One
Das
more.
ist ein schlechter
One
Example.
more. So again, but one more.
That's what is a schlechter
Please give me
example.
one example.
No, because you're not even listening to the idea. You're just screaming what your opinion was
I'm not
before you thought
kidding.
about
Give me another
it.
example.
This is mamish useless. It's so useless that I don't know why I'm talking. It's better weg, and that treffer besser weg nicht zu machen.
You're not being teachable.
No, because I don't have to teach anything. By the way, I'm just talking about someone else's idea. This is
So I'm trying to understand ideas. And please give me an example. so I
You're
can
not trying to understand because all you're
I
saying
am trying to understand it.
no, all you're doing is, says nicht. Okay, says ja. Jetzt immer etwas. Zu mir macht es nicht, dass says ja, but the Schein says nicht. I don't have any language. Let's think what's going on here.
The language
There's
is the
nothing,
example.
it's useless. No, examples are useless here. 100% useless.
Why?
What do you mean why? Because we're not talking about where we know that there is such a thing. Again, the whole time we're trying to explain the difference. So du hast verstanden a concept, du hast verstanden the concept exists. Everyone, by the way, theoretically, even if, let's say, according to Hantige physics or whatever, all causes have an after effect, which is probably not true, but let's not get into that. But theoretically, everyone understands that the concept of cause doesn't need, at least not everyone understands, but most people understand that the classical concept of cause doesn't need it to be before the effect. What was that from
Could there be an effect without a cause?
No.
Why
What's the
not?
difference? What do you mean? They could.
Why not?
I don't understand. What does that even mean?
No,
Imagine that.
because they can't.
But they
Because
can't.
there has to
In
be
the
a
Zelda
cause.
Tzad, in the Zelda Tzad,
Yeah.
Yishem Baita. I don't understand what your problem is.
No, but I just told you. Could
I don't
there
understand why it can't be. You're saying it never
Could there
happened.
be an effect?
There's
The
no
effect could be
rationale.
without a cause, right? It could be that I do something and that nothing happens out of it. But it can be that there's a cause without an effect. It's automatically one is before the other. There's no such a thing that there's a cause without an effect.
Your mom is.
As mamish, right?
We're not even thinking here. Mom is just screaming. Nein, lass mich recht. Ich maske mich an der Schreier, du nur mit nicht gut nicht auf. Keiner geht nicht rausgekommen mit any besseren Verstand wie Guffen gut nicht. Is this agreed upon at least?
Because you're not being teachable.
Nein, wenn die Schreier ist, dann nicht schreien. So, was haben wir schreien?
I asked you a question before.
No, I think that
Should there be a cause without an effect? You just said, I'm trying to.
You're not answering my question. You're saying, you're repeating something you said before. Had ik gefragt dat zweite Schale jetzt?
No, you didn't finish. You didn't let me finish. You didn't let me finish my
I'm going to wait
argument.
for you to answer that.
You didn't let me finish my argument. Can there be a cause? Can there be a cause without effect? He said no. Can there be an effect without a cause? The answer is yes. So that means there can be an effect without a cause. I mean the other way around. The cause, something can cause something, but the effect is not going to happen.
I have
Right?
no idea what you're saying now, but I'm still
So that means one could be without the other. So that means one is dependent on the other. Very simple.
No idea what you're
How
saying
do
now.
they claim it's true?
Number one, I have no idea what you're saying now. And secondly, you're not answering what I asked about.
What's the question?
Logically, it makes sense.
No, it doesn't.
Why not?
Tonight, you wasted.
And the answer doesn't make
Ändert
sense.
mal.
My line is super story.
Kann ich repeaten Sachen ändern?
Why can't it be
Kann ich repeaten
together?
Sachen ändern?
I don't have it.
Because he causes him. He causes him to be. So cause mit seinem Vater.
And it's distinct, it's all beregen. It could be.
No,
I just don't have examples.
So get an example that can be.
I don't.
Logic is based on empirical evidence.
I mean, that's the audience. That's the night.
Yes, that's the way. Otherwise, I'm going to make up theories from
Dit is eigenlijk een balplas van beslist. Of de Apple. Deze, ik heb zo aan de kop. Je doet hapjes als een accessory. Maar nooit nog op het gezien. Hier zijn we gezien aan moe. Dus there's no examples for it. Okay, there's a couple examples. Ik heb zo aan de kop.
1 minute. Right now, you said something, but that's actually useful, what you said, but you're pretending that it's not useful. You see, that's not helping anyone. If you have a theory that says that there's no concept that we didn't see, people have this theory. You're not the first one to have that theory. I don't see that it's not the only theory that we can have, but it's a theory. At least you're now, instead of screaming, wenn ich du als Nein, suchst ja nein, also ich habe etwas. Ich habe du hast es mir gerade beschrieben. Einer kann sagen, was ich hier beschrieben. Du weißt, wie du suchst dieses du, das meinst so etwas, was man nicht so, weil ihr suchst das. Ihr suchst ja nein, und das versucht du bist kein größer
Idiot, that this can find Obanzo.
By the way, did you notice that I'm in the middle of a sentence? Ich weiß nicht, wie von Menschen, wenn retten mit einer Sentence nicht, because some people here didn't figure that out yet. So that's that maybe I'm very bad at the tune that I'm talking. Sometimes like literally in the middle of a word and someone stops. At least like ich kann nicht gebrauchen. Just that say das als ich von Schmaß beginne geht, wenn ich halt nicht mitten in der Sentence. Das ist nochmal schuld. Ich vergesse später, was wir sagen. Doesn't make sense. Maybe I'm very bad at making sentences. Weiß nicht. Dafür das sagt, das rausfinden.
Can I totally know?
Yeah, because I'm literally in the middle of saying something. I weiß schon, was the next word is. Ich habe es anders. Man darf machen, man kann müssen machen, I have to figure out better how to make full sentences, and at least if you want to interrupt between two sentences, verstehen?
I think it's your fault.
You should say with the flag.
Could be, it's my fault. Could be.
Pick up the flag when it's red and when it's green.
Possible that it's my fault. Weiß nicht. Epsa chish, but not what's figured
Well,
out.
But
Lamaster, I love talking.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't remember what I was saying.
I told you, I don't know.
Had gezocht, had Hamas begewein.
Nein, tell me, was ich in der Mitte sagen. Okay, ich in der Mitte sagen. Sometimes, this is something funny that happens here often. Sometimes, I say something, and you're saying this word is not, but that doesn't help anyone. That's a very, by the way, this is actually useful. This is actually what people in yeshivas think a svura is. Miskalish, ich meine also. You have to, to that I could just reply, I said, ich meine nicht. Jetzt kann ich die ganze Nacht, ja, nein, ja. And we scream at each other until we get mad. This kind of thing. This is ein Weg von Verschmissen an Sachen. Fragt nicht so nicht Svuras. Another way would be to think, okay, to me, this simply doesn't make any sense what you said. The words that you said don't connect. You're saying, for example, this is what you would have to think. And you're saying two things that are different, and really they're just the same thing in different words. That's really what you mean to say, right? Ich sage, zu sagen, the Sibbe von etwas mindestens an existiert Varianz, and to dich, I'm just taking the same word and saying it different ways and making a difference. Right? Right? That's what you think. For you, you didn't say it even in so much words, because even just saying it that many words already taught us something, right? In other words, now I could write down this question, right? Until then I couldn't write down the question. Now I could write down Ha'im, Sibbe, Vizmani, Oisedova. Or is it two different words? They're obviously two different words, right? They're obviously two different words. The Shalom, they mean the same thing, right?
Exactly.
So yes, laut dich. Dich is yet, at least we have a better definition of the question. That you, they obviously mean the same thing. And to other someone else, they are saying nicht was. Ich sehe, warum es kann sein, als ob ihr auch geht oder so. Ich kann seine Sache sagen, ich sehe nicht, warum es dieselbe Sache. Es ist zwei andere Sachen, zwei andere Kanten. Das macht Leute. Now, that if we want to, well, das should noch sein. If we want to actually, if you want to actually learn anything, we're gonna need to find a way to talk about this without just saying it's macht nicht ganz sense, macht ja sense, right?
Right. So you said it very well. So is Sibbe Zman or not? But that's what I'm saying all the time.
That's just repeating the question again, right? That just repeat. At least finally.
I'm saying that from the beginning. That's what I'm telling you all the time. Sibbe is Zman. That is
another
word of saying
that's
it.
Not. You saying it doesn't
more than Rochni's like a way.
But you saying it doesn't make
one
it true.
Causing another.
Okay. I know that you're saying that. Of course, I know that you're saying it, but I don't think that it makes it any more true. Or you don't even. It's not. Doesn't even explain it better by saying it. All it does is say that you think so. Okay, so the miskalish of the get never. Ich is miskalish never. For me is miskalish never. For me is the miskalish. That is two totally separate concepts. I don't agree with your theory that time is just another way of saying cause. I don't see any reason why it should be true. because obviously, even if it would be true in some other context, it's not true
Is
here.
time
Because
changed?
obviously,
What is time? So you know, let's
obviously,
define
I'm
time.
not worried.
And then-
I don't need to define time because I could just say, obviously, something from the first moment it exists can already cause something else. I don't see a reason because according to you need to have a theory why.
it could, but then that is considered that.
That's not considered time. That's not time.
It doesn't have to be time in a watch. It doesn't have to be
I don't
time in a
know why
watch. It
not.
doesn't
What
have to
else
be
is
time in a
time?
watch.
What else is time?
That is time. Time is one thing causing another.
But now you're just redefining the
Because
word time. That's
is
useless.
changed.
I agree. So
Time
yeah.
is changed.
Now going back to what
Now there is two things.
Okay,
Till now there was one.
No, but now we're just
Now there
now
is
you're just
change
saying-
because
now-
there is two. So that means there was past. Time has passed from 1 to 2. Now there's something else coming. There is a change. There is a change that happens. So time passed.
Now you're just repeating something you said earlier, which is that in another sense, time can be said to mean civic, but I'm not worried, and that's obviously not the question that we're asking over here, so that's irrelevant, right? We agree that even according to the theory that there's a difference, we could say that it's before if you want to call time causality, that's not a problem. If you just want to say that time means causality, but obviously there's a meaning of time which is not causality. I could look at the crack on the wall and see that this thing from the first second existed already caused something else to happen.
Already caused something else to happen. You said it very good.
Yes.
Already caused something
But
else to
from the
happen.
first second, there's no time. Du azayge, steht eins azayge, in derselbe Zeit du azag, in derselbe Zeit ich this. There's time in the vertical way, like if you from my picture, right? But that's not the sense of time that I'm interested in, right? I'm interested in the horizontal time.
Who cares? That's
But who cares? That's not the
point
main.
we're talking about.
That's not the main thing. Because the question is, does it make sense to have the world exist from here and God and from the same time that God existed? Although in this sense it's after God. Everyone agrees with that.
Exactly.
Or it doesn't make sense. According to him, it doesn't make sense because these things don't. It's impossible to have basically what I understand you saying. Now you have to think why it doesn't make sense. Because what you're just doing right until now is just redefining words, and I don't have any problem with that. If you think that's what way of saying time.
You defined very good exactly what I
meant to say. But everyone agrees with that.
We agreed on that.
Exactly. Of dem doch Machlekes, ja. Machlekes is etwas anderes. Machlekes is diese macht sense. The idea macht sense. That's the Machlekes, right? You are claiming, or your idea is claiming that it doesn't make sense because he thinks that nothing ever causes something in the first second that it starts existing. It first needs to exist for a second, and then it can start causing things. I'm saying now you understand why it's funny, right? And according to me, I don't see why that has to be. I think something could start existing at the same second it starts existing, it caused the next thing, and it's actually makes more sense.
I can agree with you. Okay. You didn't define yourself clearly for now. I agree. Yes, I agree with what you just said. Yeah.
I should just understand.
No, because you said
I think
as if it's.
But it's not true. You see, this is something funny because sometimes because we're so focused on winning the argument, we forget that that's not interesting. But sometimes what happens, this is actually...
Because in a way, I see that you agree with what I thought.
The last word I said was actually. It doesn't sound like the end of a sentence, right?
No.
Ich bin nicht ein Schicker, I said nicht nur ich bin wrong. That was funny to write. So actually, I don't know, now I know what the next word is, see? That's the only reason it bothers me. If I have a better memory, I don't care. If I learn. Actually, we learn when you have these kind of debates, we can learn something. See, that's why I disagree with the people that are saying we're never going to learn anything. Yeah. So now we understand, okay, in the sense that this sense, we beide verstehen sich alle, in the green, in the other sense, the green is nicht. So jetzt habe ich etwas gelernt. Jetzt der Rose came, we even agree more than we thought we agree, right? We thought that we're totally disagreeing. You say it makes no sense, I say it makes sense. No, we agree that in the sense of time being causality, everything makes sense. But we disagree on something else. We're not yet sure on what else. And then, another point that I have to say. Now, you came and he agreed with him, he agreed with you, that you said that it doesn't make sense to talk about causality besides without time because there's no empirical proof for any other kind of causality, right? Now, I said this is a very good theory. This is a theory that actually makes sense. No, but we have to discuss this. And now we learned another thing, right? You could agree with me that in the theoretical world, you see, of the theory, we have already agreed on something more than we came in with, right? But bis jetzt, es macht sense. But bitte es macht sense, right? You don't agree with concepts that we don't see. And who then? Ganz nahe then. So jetzt, ich wollte dich aufziehen, der Schmiss. Ich kann es nicht tun. Ich habe es mal dich aufgezogen, ja? Bis jetzt, ich will das Maß von Wort absorbiert. Ich wollte dich aufziehen. Bis jetzt haben wir gemeint, dass er Leute ist, macht da nicht Sinn. Jetzt klar nur, dass macht Sinn. Schade noch, sie mir mehr kommen kann, das macht nicht Sinn.
But this
Now
doesn't
suddenly
need to be explained.
you that's the give me an idea for some reason. I don't know why.
But this doesn't need to be explained. Jede Sache, das weiß mir, ist, weil ich habe es gesehen. Ich habe gesagt, nein, schreien, jede Sache, ich weiß, dieses da nicht, Malachi sucht mir das. Jetzt, ich habe gesprochen, wo ist Malachi sucht mir das? Jedes Malachi sucht das. But you got to
I mean it, but the chefs does oh, you know, like about they go and you're pretending not to. You see, look what happens when we're so focused on winning. I disagree, by the way. I totally disagree with that. Whatever you're saying now, I totally disagree. I don't think it's true at all. But that's a different question. I think that's a very productive question. We could think about it for 100 years about that question. I don't think it's true. We could think about it. I don't think it's so simple like you're pretending it to be. But I do think that I do think that this heißt, etwas aufgetein. But jetzt Früher sucht es macht Sinn zu kämpfen. Jetzt sucht es macht Sinn, dass der Tusch gerade nicht MS. Verwusst, dass du klar, was Logik ist pushet, das kann man extra mal einsetzen. Logik ist pushet. Du hast klar, was auch, eine Sache, was man sieht nicht existiert nicht. Okay, schade.
But think about it.
That's a question that we can think about next year.
When Einstein came out with the idea that light is
that's a
he
very
didn't see it.
question.
He didn't actually
understand.
A lot of theories of science that don't actually see it. It's a theory. It's not proof.
Now you're already bringing examples for that. But they have to
200 years later, whatever.
Ich ga nicht stoppen du. Ich verstehe mal an deze guys da mit Tipps gelernt.
Aber lernt jetzt?
Who cares about Torah?
That's not ask your local Orthodox friend.
Exactly. You want to make a check? What's that? I wish to have with that paper.
Relate it to our lives or it's Torah.
Okay, there's noch a shot. Ich kann nicht dachten alles, I'm sorry.
Guys, look,
that's another question. Fair question. Just trying to get and because just a very good example. When you're focused on winning, you don't care about all of this. This is something I see.
No one focuses on winning. The matter is
1 second. In is the end of a sentence.
No,
They don't finish sentence.
We don't understand in die meist as a kamen mit mir.
But you do understand. You pretend to not understand.
No, I don't understand.
But das geht so, wenn du sagen, du kannst. Du sagst nur, das macht keinen Sinn, was nicht gesehen.
I said it. He didn't say that. He didn't agree.
But
I agree with you.
I was talking to you who agreed with you.
I agreed with you. It doesn't mean that he agreed.
No, he just said that he agrees very much that the problem is that it's not apparent, it's not seen. Okay, but that
So
means
and because
when they look this, mind this, that the verstehst, ja, das ist mind. Right? That's what it means. You just think that it's obvious that we should not think in this way. Okay? This is to me it's not so obvious, but that we could think about next week if it's obvious or not. You see, but you're still focused on winning. Because did you win or did you not win? I don't even know who won. I have no idea.
in my head there's a fight. It's only your head. Who tries to understand?
No, but you pretend to you until you
I'm
don't
not
to understand anything. That's your definition of understanding. How does it get?
But now I'm trying to understand how
But
both
verstehst.
at the same time.
No, die verstehst. Die suchst nach nicht stemmes. That's very different from not understanding. Die
No, das ich verstehe nicht.
I told you. He doesn't.
Ich verstehe
You're
nicht.
mixing up me and him.
I don't understand.
He just told me. Then
I said. He didn't
He
say.
said that
I
cause and
said.
effect can be under
Ich lege nach Schale. Wie sagt Sekunden darf es existieren, fast halb und zu kosten.
Whatever it is.
Split second.
Why? Why? What's the reason for
Well,
that?
because that's something you saw already. Shadow.
Ja. Nein, jeder sagt.
I mean, but ich rede es logically, nicht empirically. Du verstehst, aber noch langsam machlich. Wie das möchte
No,
man.
by now jeder versteht schon jeder. So there's no point of talking.
No, he's not agreeing.
He does
He
not.
does.
He does not.
He's pretending because he wants to win a fight. Ich kann verstehen, ich gewinnen, ich kehre nicht. I'm wegen dem. I'm trying to explain this, that's all. Okay.
Was a nice sheep.
Ich mag that in, this is not, I get to try
No, I'll tell you why. Because